What you won't hear me do is argue facts. Facts of this, facts of that. I'm not going to waste your time doing that. I've chosen to speak from the heart.
CF 1848, may I have the appearances, please?
I am here as a third-party intervener in that matter, appearing as authorized representative for my client. I accept for value and return for value all of the charges against me.
The record should reflect that the individual known to this court as Darrell Brooks is present in person in custody.
I don't consent to being called that name, Your Honor.
I will continue to refer to you at times by that name, as I believe it's appropriate given the charging instruments in this case. With that, I
don't agree to that, Your Honor, or consent to that.
Lack of consent is noted. I need to put a couple of things on the record. I know Mr. Brooks has filed some things, but before I get to that, I excused one of the jurors for a health reason. I now have a second juror with the same health concern, and I am going to bring the jurors out to question them about whether any of them have any concern about continuing to serve on this jury. Given the health concern, I am referring to a COVID concern. I'm not going to ask any particular juror whether they've tested positive, but I am going to ask them questions about their willingness to continue serving, whether it's interfering at all with their ability to pay attention.
Your Honor, will we be addressing subject matter jurisdiction?
No.
Still has yet to be proven for the record.
I don't know if the audio is on, but...
So, unless there are anything related to that, I have a couple of other issues I need to address this morning.
I got something for that.
The person or the two people rather that are having the COVID concerns. I know you said you wasn't going to ask them had they test positive or the results of any testing. Do you know if there has been exposure on their end to COVID exactly, or is that just a caution thing?
I've had two jurors test positive, and I'd make a further record that they're the only ones within 6 feet of each other. But that's a good question to ask, and I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah, that would be my question to it. I guess in reference to me myself just having the same concern a few weeks ago, so that would be the reason why I would want to know exactly any details that could be provided.
I'm providing all the details that I will. You have not been exposed because of the distance that you are away from them.
Yeah, I'm not saying me myself have been
Understood.
exposed.
I'm satisfied that if they don't have a concern, that we can continue forward.
Have they ever, the entirety of the jury though, have they been exposed in any way?
I don't know the specifics. No one has asked me to investigate that further.
Wouldn't it be smart though to see?
I don't believe that's necessary under the circumstances.
Well, if anything, just for future reference, like what if it plays a part later on?
Well, I'll certainly take your concerns under advisement. If I change my mind, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because if anything, it probably would be smart for the long run to make sure no one else was compromised, considering that.
Let me make a record there. No one has indicated they are compromised. I trust my jurors that they would report if they're not able to sit through the proceeding. I will further advise them that they are to report if they ever get to a point where they feel they're not able to sit through here. And if
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, because it was from Monday, which at that time it was the only.
Could have been flu, could have been just not feeling well, could have been anything. And then today is, then you kind of worry about tomorrow, Friday, over the weekend.
Mr. Brooks, I share all of those concerns. But my other concern is that we are in the third week of trial. We should keep going until the conclusion of this matter.
All right. I just wanted to put that on the record because
I appreciate that.
It seemed like the circumstances were different when it was me. Just saying.
Are you making any specific requests given this information?
Well, I believe that the jury clearly all congregate together. I think it would be smart to make sure everybody is tested. I mean, that's it would be smart to do that.
I'm not going to mandate testing for the jurors. That much I can tell you. So that request is denied.
And the grounds for the denial?
I'm not going to mandate that the jurors be subjected to testing. And again, I would trust them to report to me if anything changes.
I would trust that too, but it still would refer back to Monday when the first knowledge of someone having an illness or a potential illness, Was those same questions that were asked today asked Monday?
I did not.
I'm quite sure.
I certainly questioned them much more. It was a very brief. I put what I said to them on the record.
I'm quite sure, though, that all the jurors Monday said they didn't have any concerns as well. And then now today, someone else, same thing being said. So
I understand what you're
if
saying.
it happens again, same thing being said.
But are you making any specific requests?
Well, you denied the request that.
Any other requests?
I just feel like it's smart for them to be tested, so it doesn't come up again in the future, or potentially come up again in the future, because then we'll all be looking back and saying, well, we could have prevented something like this from happening if we had just nipped it in the bud from the get-go. It's just smart to, like you say, err on the side of caution.
I'm going to continue. I understand what you're saying. All right, then I want to talk briefly about the jury view. Mr. Brooks, I have been thinking about your request yesterday, and I know I indicated to you that I would require you to be there. I've rethought that. I've had the overnight to really think about it, and if that is your decision to not be present for that, I want you to be advised that you have a right to be at that jury view. Did you hear me say that?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much told me yesterday about, everything that was going on. I just didn't agree to or consent to it being, well, I was still confused about why did there even need to be a jury view. That was my whole thing. I don't see the relevancy of it. I also didn't agree with or consent to having to be part of something that I don't see as relevant.
I appreciate you making a record of that, but did you hear what I said? There's been a request from the state to have the jury look at the vehicle that was recovered by the police and, of course, is alleged to be the vehicle that was driven through the parade. Did you hear me advise you of that?
Yes, I heard.
That motion was addressed previously, and I granted the request for that jury view. Did you hear me say that?
I'm informed.
With that, you have a right to be present at that jury view. Did you hear me say that?
I'm informed.
I would like you to be there. I believe it is a piece of evidence. That's why I've drafted jury instruction 152 the way that I did. Did you hear me say that?
I'm informed.
So my question to you then this morning is, do you want to be present at the jury view of the vehicle?
I don't see the reason why I would need to be present.
Well, that's my question to you, though, is do you want to be present for it? You are the accused in this case. You're the person who the state has alleged committed these acts. It's the jury view will be to view a piece of evidence that frankly can't come into the courtroom due to its size, and the jury's going to be shown that. So do you want to be present at that?
For the record, I'm not a person, I'm a human being. No, I do not consent to or agree to being present at a jury view.
All right, then I'm going to honor his request. I want to make a record of what's being done, and I want a visual record of what is being done. I have asked the Sheriff's Department to record.
I have a question, though.
Go ahead.
If I have a right to be present, then I have a right to not be present. How can this take place if I don't agree or consent to being present? How can it even still take place without me?
It will take place. I'm just going to honor your request not to be there.
I'm asking a question, though. How can it take place without my consent or agreement?
If you don't... It's going to take place. That's how I'm going to answer that.
My Lord,
but you can forfeit your right to be there by your conduct. And by your conduct, by not answering my question, you will be forfeiting your right to be present and essentially waiving that.
Doesn't I have to sign something for it to be waived?
I don't think so in this case.
Well, yesterday you said something about...
I know I said that, and I've had some time to think about that further, and I don't believe I need to take a full waiver with you signing anything or even agreeing to the waiver.
So why did I have to do that for when my...
I'm not going to answer those questions because that would be for me to give you an explanation of the law.
No.
I'm just going to tell you that I'm not going to require a written waiver from you in order to honor your request to not be at or even if I phrase it, your lack of consent to the jury view.
And is that lawful law? Because...
Sir, I'm not going to go through all the law that applies to that. This is my ruling. If you disagree with it and ultimately there is a conviction, you can raise that on appeal. But your lack of consent is not going to stop the jury view. It's going to happen. It's a piece of evidence that I cannot fit in this courtroom.
Okay, I'm informed of that, but at the same time, if I haven't signed any waiver, how could it be lawful? I haven't given consent or agreement to a jury view. I haven't waived any right. When the whole issue was brought up on the record yesterday, my first thing that I said was, I don't see the relevancy of why there should even be a jury view. And that was the whole issue. And yesterday I was told about the, I don't know how you say it, the colloquy, or however you say it. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I know what I said. I'm changing my mind.
The way I interpret the law, though, Your Honor, which the law is designed to be interpreted by the people. The way I interpret that is I have the right, or essentially, to be there or not to be there, and it still has to be an agreement or consent. That's how I interpret the law.
My ruling on that, sir, is I disagree with you. Your objection is noted for the record. I'll make a specific finding today that it is relevant.
I don't agree or consent to that, Your Honor.
I understand your objection is well noted for the record. I need to keep going, though. On the pattern and jury...
I'm informed that you need to keep going. I'm not trying to stop you from continuing to go. I'm merely stating for the record that there are things I do not understand how they're being permitted versus the Constitution. I mean, I'm sure you're aware under Article 6, Chapter 2 about the Supremacy Clause that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So how can we disregard?
Mr. Brooks, I'm not disregarding the Constitution. Here's the thing. I've made my ruling. Even if you disagree with it, you will not continue to argue it. We will continue on with the next topic.
I'm seeking to understand, Your Honor. It's not an argument.
Mr. Brooks, I'm not going to explain further other than what I have done, my ruling. My ruling stands. Now, I'm going to move on to the jury instruction. I gave the parties 2 documents.
May I respectfully reject that ruling and take exception to that ruling?
Your objection is noted.
For the record, may I request a legal and factual basis for your ruling, Your Honor?
Mr. Brooks, please don't interrupt me. I give you an opportunity to raise your objections and to make your legal arguments.
I'm raising
and then I make a ruling, and then you start in on something else. For you to interrupt me afterward is disruptive.
It's not disruptive.
And it's interrupting and it's disruptive.
It is definitely not disruptive.
Well, it does disrupt what I'm doing and the flow of what I'm doing. I know you may not always agree with my rulings. And once I make a ruling, we're going to move on. I'm going to continue. We're going to look at jury instruction 152. I gave the parties 2 documents yesterday. One was the pattern instruction, which I've modified, and then one is the draft of, Mr. Brooks, please stop. You're continuing to talk over me.
Because you're interrupting. You said I have the right to object, and you didn't let me even get to the objection.
I did, sir.
No, you didn't. I was right in the middle of it.
Your objection comes before the ruling, not after. Once I make a ruling, we're moving on.
You made a ruling before we even finished the conversation, Your Honor. With all due respect, before we even finished, you said I'm going to make a ruling as soon as you even started in about
Brooks, I'm
having
not
the time to think.
spend hours on end making a ruling about a jury view on something I've already decided. Stop interrupting me.
You can't,
and please listen.
Just disregard the United States Constitution, which has a
I
supremacy
absolutely
clause.
am not disregarding the United States Constitution or the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin.
Your Honor, are you not a public servant?
Okay, Mr. Brooks, you're starting to cross the line. You've already crossed it, but I want to keep going. I want you in this courtroom. If you keep interrupting me and putting you on notice that you run the risk of forfeiting your right to be present in this courtroom and continuing in the next courtroom so that I can effectively and without interruption continue with the proceedings this morning.
So again, you're holding me in contempt.
Jury instruction 152, has the state had an opportunity to review it?
Is that a judicial determination that I'm being held in contempt?
And I just think it's maybe better to refer to this area as a garage instead of a sally port. And instead of referring it as being in the Waukesha County Jail, I just suggested a garage attached to the Waukesha County Courthouse. I think that is factually accurate and would dispel any concerns about anybody being in custody or reference to a jail setting. I did email my proposed instruction to your clerk and I e-filed it.
All right, why don't we print that off so that Mr. Brooks can review that as well.
Seem to be called that name. What do I need to be reviewing?
The state has submitted an alternate proposal for instruction 152.
And that's referring to this quote-unquote jury view?
Yes.
I accept for value in return for value this document. And I would like the record to reflect I still haven't received my original copies of my filings here this morning with the timestamp.
Let me know when you've had an opportunity to review it if you so choose.
I just stated for the record I accept for value in return for value the document.
Do you have any position on this state's proposal?
I'm still trying to understand the whole process.
Mr. Brooks, my question to you is, do you have any position on the state's proposed jury instruction? Otherwise, I'm going to rule on their request.
You're going to rule on the request anyway. I got a lot of questions that don't get answered.
I have have to rule on the request, sir. It's been a proposal filed with the court.
You haven't ruled on subject matter jurisdiction yet.
Yes, I have.
No, you
In
haven't.
any event, do you have a position on the jury view, sir?
Yeah, what about subject matter jurisdiction?
One last time, Mr. Brooks, do you have a position on
Can
the
I
state's
go over the
proposed-
document, please? Can I do that, Your Honor? Respectfully,
sorry?
for the record, may I do that? You seem like the same thing that was there yesterday.
It's not. There are some changes.
What changes?
Reference
It's
to
the same.
the-
It's the same document that was
Reference to
accepted for value and
the-
returned for value yesterday. The same document.
It's not the same. The changes were put on the record verbally by the state.
So it was a couple words changed.
That's my understanding.
So it's the same document.
Let me know when you're finished reviewing it, and
I
I'll have a
don't
question.
have to review the same document that was reviewed yesterday, accepted for value and returned for value yesterday.
All right, then let me ask you this, sir. Do you have a position on the proposed instruction from the state?
It's essentially the same document. What was the significance of the change? What's the significance? Garage, Sallyport. What is the relevancy of what it's called?
State want to put on the record again the basis for the changes you made.
Your Honor, to my way of thinking, it is beneficial to the defendant. It removes any reference to Sallyport, which some may recognize as being part of the Waukesha County Jail. It removes reference to the jail itself. And then in the second sentence, the pattern instruction was worded, and the court followed it. You will be taken to the Sallyport in the custody of the jury bailiffs. I just thought it was better to change that. You will be taken to the garage by the jury bailiffs. Again, removing the use of the word custody is it's factually true, but it's really irrelevant. And just to be cautious, Your Honor.
With that, sir, do you have any?
I don't fundamentally understand that. I think everyone's well aware that I'm in custody, so how does the wording change what's already known? Everybody knows that I'm housed in the Waukesha County Jail. How does the wording change what's already known? It's reported on every single day, as it has been since the beginning of trial and even before that. So I don't think anyone's not privy to the knowledge of where I'm housed and that I'm in custody. How does changing the wording change what's already known?
I am going to adopt the draft that was submitted by the state. It still is factually accurate. The importance of this instruction is to tell them what is and what is not evidence, and to instruct them and to not talk during this time. They can't discuss what they see during this time. This instruction will be read while we are still in the courtroom.
So if I was there, where will I be at?
If you choose to be there, as you will be escorted like you are in court here now, the bailiffs would be with you. You'd be in your suit.
So where will I be at?
I don't know exactly. That's up to the sheriff's department. We're not going to commingle you with the state or the state with jurors or you with the jurors, and that it's only myself who will walk around. And I may not even do that. I have to think about that. But the jurors are the ones who are going to walk around the vehicle one time.
So I don't get to walk around the vehicle?
I can have you do that before the jurors come in. I certainly can have you do that.
I agree with everything the court said. I also think Mr. Brooks should understand that he's not going to be led into the room in shackles in front of the jury. There will be basically no distinction between how Mr. Brooks appears to the jury versus how we appear to the jury.
I will add to that, however many bailiffs, sheriff's deputies are with you, I want the same number with the state.
I have a question to that. How come none of that knowledge of how it would be conducted was discussed with me? I didn't know anything about how the bailiffs would actually do things, how certain things would go. This is my first time hearing this.
Well, we
so
have preliminary.
I don't understand it.
We have preliminary discussions at the time of the request.
But don't you
At no
think-
time did I have conversations independently with the state. That only happened in the setting of a courtroom or when a letter was received and I reviewed it.
I haven't reviewed that letter or seen it. Don't you think that?
It was specifically addressed at the jury status hearing. It was addressed by this court, many of these details, Your Honor.
All right.
Many of the same
So-
details that's being discussed right now at this moment?
All right, Mr. Brooks, do you have a request as it relates to any of that?
Well, yeah, I'm still trying to understand the whole how this is all working, and then it was a reference to how the shackles would look, or how being shackled or not being shackled. I'm guessing that I can't just walk around freely with bailiffs. I'm sure there would be some type of shackles.
I will tell them you are not to be shackled visibly for the jury to see.
And what do you mean by visibly,
And
Your Honor?
So obviously when you sit in court, you're shackled to a table. They can't see that. I'm not going to have you in belly chains or in leg shackles. You're just going to be escorted. And it will be up to them how they determine
Well, he may be in leg shackles, Your Honor, if there's a table or some way that they can keep that out of the view of the jury. Just like he is in court. He's shackled in court. He has been for 3 weeks.
Actually, these are...
The security has to be left at the discretion of the Sheriff's Department.
Actually, these are leg shock devices, not shackles.
Sir, the security is up to the Sheriff's Department. I should be careful not to overstep my bounds on that. And, you know, whatever is done, it should not be viewable or visible to the jury.
And why is that, Your Honor? I don't understand that part. Why is the jury not privileged to see?
That is to your benefit.
I'm
not going to explain that any further.
I don't understand. I'm just seeking to understand. I don't know.
All right. I need to move on. So unless there's a specific request other than a statement that you're making about your lack of understanding, I need to move on with the other topics.
There is a specific request. Why do I have to have ankle shocks on my ankles to appear at this jury view thing?
I guess I'm not aware of what you're talking about. So were you advised by the Sheriff's Department that that would be the case?
Well, the DA just said that I would have the ankle shocks on.
No, shackles, she said.
No, these are not shackles. They're shock device.
Judge, we're spending a lot of time talking about security and things that are frankly beyond your knowledge and my knowledge.
I object to that. I'm simply trying to understand, why do I need ankle shocks?
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I will leave the security of the jury view to the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. That is their responsibility.
So I should discuss that with the sheriff?
Yes. So I know, Mr. Brooks, you filed with the court 2 documents. I'm going to take them under advisement.
No, it's one document. It's one. It was 2 papers, but it's one document.
And it's 1 filing, 2 papers, just front side, entitled Alleged Defendant Jurisdictional Challenge and Mandatory Judicial Notice by Affidavit. It references the case caption, the case number, and I'll review it later. It's my understanding, sir, that you are requesting the original back. Is that true?
Yes. I want to say to that, too, in reference to that. I actually said on record numerous times that I wanted the original copies of all my filings. I've actually said that 3 times on the record. This would be the 4th time. Every filing that
I'm going to give it back to you, sir, but I'm not required to by law.
Well, I'm just saying on record that I've asked for that numerous times.
Your statement's noted for the record. All right.
So would I be able to get all the original copies of all my filings?
I'm not going to address that any further, sir, because I am not the official keeper of the record.
I was told that you make the decision if I can get the original copy.
And I just made a determination you could have the original back of this.
Can I have the originals for all my filings?
I'm not going to address that right now, sir. I don't have time.
I have the copies. I don't have the original.
All right. I'm going to move on.
I have them here.
This is taking up valuable time with the jury. We need to keep going.
Is that a judicial determination, Your Honor, that I can't get an answer to something?
I don't believe there's any other preliminary issues we need to address unless anything preliminary other than the filing, sir, and other than the topics we've discussed this morning.
Yeah, I'm still wondering when I will get the copies back for the ICFs that I filed.
I can't answer that. I don't have those, sir.
Well, what happened to them?
I don't know. They're not part of the record. I'm not going to address that any further. All right,
let's bring
the jury up.
It's kind of funny that they disappeared. No ICF disappeared before.
Not evidence, sir. So
they haven't disappeared before. I've always got copies. What's the difference now?
All rise for the jury.
So I have to readdress her the same thing in order to get copies that I've always been getting since the beginning of you telling me to file ICF.
Sir, as a courtesy, if you want to make a list of whatever documents you believe you have not been provided copies with, I will, as a courtesy, instruct my clerk, Teresa. They're not going to be dates or timestamped other than what's in the file. They'll be from the electronic file, but you need to provide her with a list, and then I will do that as a courtesy to you. But I'm not required to do that. And as far as any ICFs, if they weren't directed to me, then you will have to follow up with Clerk of Court Monica Paz. I don't have them. They're not part of the file.
Then why were you getting them before?
You'll have to ask her that.
I have to ask her why you were getting them before?
My understanding is they were forwarded to me, sir, but we'll...
So what happened to this one being forwarded to you?
Sir, I can't answer that. I can't answer what I don't know. So
it
the
seems
jury's
like
coming
you're trying
in.
to
We're
avoid
going to continue
like.
with the trial. So thank
Just
you.
like you've avoided subject matter jurisdiction. You haven't proven that on the record.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. And thank you for your patience this morning as the court addressed some legal issues with the parties. The state would please call their next witness.
The state calls Steve Schloman.
Go ahead, your witness.
Sir, what is your job title?
I'm the IT director at Waukesha School District.
Are you aware as to whether or not the school district maintains security cameras at the buildings on the school district property?
Yes, we do.
Overruled.
And specifically, is there a school district property located at the address of 222 Maple Street or Avenue in the city of Waukesha?
Yes.
Overruled.
What building is that location, sir?
That is our district office.
And is there more than one security camera on that building?
Overruled.
Yes.
How many are there, sir?
Overruled.
It's about 8.
Were you contacted by the Waukesha Police Department for any reason?
Yes, I was.
For what reason?
They asked me to look at my external security camera footage.
And that would be specific to the building at 222 Maple Avenue?
That's correct.
Overruled.
Okay. When the police came to you, did they ask you to check a certain day and time on the video recording?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes, they asked me to look at Sunday.
Had you changed or altered the content of the recording in any way?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
No, I have not edited it or changed it in any way.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you first an item that's been marked as Exhibit 157. And for the record, Your Honor, I'm just laying the foundation with these videos with this witness. I do not intend to display them at this time.
Will there be more than one?
With this witness has 2,
And that would be Exhibit 157 and...
158.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
So is there an image on the screen in front of you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize what we're seeing there, sir?
Yes.
Could you please tell us what is shown on the front screen of Exhibit 157?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
This is the side of our Lindholm Administration Building.
Do you believe the video contained in Exhibit 157 will be a true and accurate depiction of the events from this location on November 21 of 21?
Objection. Speculative.
Do you want him to see the video first? Why don't you show him the video first?
Well, the video is 20 minutes long, but I think he's made the adequate foundation, Your Honor, that he's confident where this camera is and what it shows.
All right, with that, the objection's overruled, and I'll receive Exhibit 157.
Now I'm going to display for the witness only Exhibit 158. Do you recognize what is shown in Exhibit 158?
Yes.
Please describe it.
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
This is our rear parking lot at the Lindholm Administration Building.
At that same address?
222 Maple, yes, that's correct.
Is this a second camera?
Objection, leading.
Correct.
Overruled.
Correct, this is a second camera.
Based on the testimony of the witness, I do not intend to play any of it at this time, but I would move to admit 158.
Objection. Not intended to play. What's the relevancy?
The objection is noted. It's overruled.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, sir. Do you have any questions for this witness?
Brief. Before today, sir, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Before today, had you seen these exhibits or videos, rather, 157 and 158?
I've seen this video when I collected it off our system.
Do you recall seeing the first one?
Yes, I do. On Monday morning, when detectives came and asked me to review video footage.
And do you recall the name of the detective that you reviewed the footage with?
I do not recall the name of the detective, no.
And after that, after initially viewing these videos, did you follow up with law enforcement after that?
Yes, I did.
And it would be fair to assume that that was strictly about the videos.
Correct.
And had you obtained any knowledge outside of what was shown in the videos?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Had you obtained any knowledge to why you were asked to provide those videos at that time?
No, I was just asked to look at my videos and see if I saw anything unusual.
Do you recall being informed that it was a possibility that you would be testifying in this matter?
No, I did not know that.
Were you subpoenaed at any time?
Yes, I was.
And do you recall about how long ago you received that subpoena?
Several weeks ago.
So pretty recent, would be fair to say.
Several weeks ago. I'm not sure if that's your definition of recent.
Do you recall who served you the subpoena?
Objection relevant.
Grounds.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
District Attorney's Office from Waukesha.
Do you recall if it was a specific district attorney?
I do not recall.
Do you recall if you were contacted by the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Do you recall having a conversation with the plaintiff?
Objection.
Grounds.
Misleading, legally inaccurate statement.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Do you recall having a phone conversation with the plaintiff in this?
Same objection.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Do you yourself recall reaching out to the plaintiff in this matter?
I'm not sure who the plaintiff is. Can you define that for me?
Plaintiff would be who's bringing the claim.
Your Honor, I object. Well, I realize there's no question at this point, but if he's going going to ask the witness to answer his prior question now that he's clarified this is irrelevant questioning.
We'll see what his question is first.
I asked it.
Please ask your question again.
Have you yourself ever reached out to the plaintiff in this matter?
And my objection is it's vague and it's legally inaccurate.
Sustained.
Do you even know if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection
Grounds.
argumentative.
Sustained.
Have you yourself filed any complaint in this matter?
Objection
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Overruled. The witness may answer, sorry.
I have not, no.
Do you know of anyone who filed a claim in this matter?
Objection
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
I do not.
And do you recall when you submitted the videos to law enforcement?
Monday afternoon,
And do you recall what method you submitted it in?
I downloaded on a flash drive.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, I'd ask Mr. Schloman be excused.
They will call Robert Stone. Go ahead, your witness.
Do you have any security cameras at your home, sir?
I do.
And do the security cameras have a way to record or save events that are captured on the camera?
They do.
Overruled.
To your knowledge, sir, was your security camera system operational on November 21 of 2021?
Objection
Yes.
speculative.
Overruled.
Was there a time where you turned over video from that security system to Waukesha Police sometime around November 21 of 2021?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
What kind of security camera do you have, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Police came to your house, is that right?
They did.
What did you give them?
I retrieved the footage and turned it into the police department.
Before you turned it into the officers, did you alter the content of the video in any way, sir?
Objection
Absolutely not.
speculative.
Overruled.
Absolutely not.
I'm going to have Exhibit 155 displayed on the screen in front of you, sir. I'm going to play it for the witness only, in full, at regular speed.
That's not regular speed, Your Honor.
Start it at the 00 again. Do you believe that's a true and accurate capture of the events at your residence on November 21 of 21?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
It is.
I notice in the upper right-hand corner of the video there appears to be a date and time stamp. Do you see that?
Objection relevancy.
Do you believe that date and time stamp was accurate?
It's off by the daylight savings time.
What do you recall the real date and time to be?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Move to admit 155, Your Honor.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. But Exhibit 155 is received. And I'm
Nope.
sorry, did you ask to publish?
No.
Okay, thank
No
you.
further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Stone. Before today, had you viewed that footage before today?
Yes.
And do you recall seeing anything unusual?
Not sure I understand the question.
Do you recall seeing anything unusual
Do you mean in the footage or
in the
at
footage?
I guess not. No.
So if you don't recall seeing anything unusual in the footage, what would be the purpose to turn it into law enforcement?
Objection.
Grounds.
Argumentative and a misstatement, Your
Grounds.
Honor.
The way it's phrased, I believe it calls for speculation.
Why did you turn the video footage into law enforcement?
I was asked to go through my camera footage.
Even though you hadn't saw anything unusual.
Sure.
And you stated that the time was off because of daylight savings time.
Correct.
And so it would have been an hour earlier than what was being shown.
I believe so.
Can you state where that particular camera is positioned on your residence?
It's on the back of my home.
Do you recall what law enforcement agency you turned that footage in to?
Was the Waukesha Police Department.
Do you recall what officer you spoke with when you turned in the video footage?
I do not.
You stated that you saw the footage before today. Any idea exactly what we were looking at?
Recorded footage of my backyard.
Pretty standard to any other footage from any other day?
I guess I don't understand that question.
Is it pretty much the same thing you would see any day if you viewed that footage?
It's recorded footage of my backyard.
Is it pretty much the same footage you would have saw if you viewed it every day?
Sure.
And do you recall if you were subpoenaed to testify in this matter?
Yes.
Do you recall by whom?
Waukesha County was on the envelope. I don't remember the names on it.
Do you recall how long ago that was?
I do not.
Did you yourself at any time file a claim in this matter?
No.
Do you know of anyone who has filed a claim in this matter?
No.
Have you ever talked to the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Have you yourself ever reached out to the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Have you ever had any personal interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Vague, argumentative, irrelevant.
Sustained.
Sustained for those reasons stated by.
Sustained is the form of the question as well.
Are you sure if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Argumentative, irrelevant.
Sustained.
Were you at any time informed that there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Irrelevant.
Sustained.
For the reasons stated by.
Sustained.
For the reasons stated
Yes.
by the state. Have you at any time seen anywhere or read anywhere that there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection,
Grounds.
Your Honor. Irrelevant.
Grounds.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. I'd ask Mr. Stone be excused.
May I call your next witness?
State calls Andrew Amerson.
Go ahead, your witness.
On November 21 of 2021, where did you live?
35 Dunbar?
Is that your home?
Yes.
Overruled.
Do you have any security cameras at your home, sir?
Yes, I do.
And did you back then in November of 21?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
To your knowledge, were they in working order on November 21 of 21?
Objection speculation.
Overruled.
Does your security camera have recording capability?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
At some point close to November 21 of 2021, maybe a day or two later, were you contacted by the Waukesha Police Department?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Why were the officers at your house, sir?
My cameras are evident from the street, so they were curious if they were in working order and if they could look at them.
Did you agree to that?
Absolutely.
Did they specifically obtain recordings related to the date of November 21 of 21?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Did you ultimately provide a copy of those recordings to the office?
Yes, on Wednesday.
Before you turned it over to them, sir, did you change the content of the recording in any way?
Objection leading. And speculative.
Overruled as to both objections.
Nothing was changed.
I'm going to put up Exhibit 156. Can you see that, sir?
I can.
All right, I'm going to play that clip for you at regular speed in its entirety.
Can we make sure it's playing at regular speed?
And if you look on the screen, sir, do you see a date and time stamp for the video?
Yes.
Objection leading.
Move for admission of 156, Your Honor.
Objection. Relevancy.
Exhibit 156 is received.
No further questions.
Thank you. You may be questioned by Mr. Brooks now. Go ahead, sir. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Good morning, Mr. Emerson. Would it be fair to say that you saw the video footage before today?
I saw it on the day of and the days following.
And what, if at anything, do you see on the video?
I see a man crossing the street, coming down from the properties across the street.
And you said a man. Would you say it's fair to say that from the video, this is a pretty good distance from where your camera was positioned?
That video image is a good distance. It's about 50 yards.
And you can tell from the video that you just watched today, you can tell the gender of the individual that you saw crossing the street, as you say?
Well, when I saw it originally, I had zoom, okay? The feature of the camera, zoom. So your image was real clear.
So the image was real clear when you had zoom. Any reason why this particular image doesn't have that feature?
They can do whatever they want.
Grounds.
Objection. Beyond the scope of the witness's knowledge, Your Honor.
I'll overrule if you know the answer.
I don't know what decisions they made in choosing the display.
And was that all you saw in the video, or did you see anything else unusual, or something that may have caught your eye? Or
That's the only thing that I was focused on.
And do you recall what agency you was contacted by about the video footage?
I didn't write down their names.
Do you recall what agency they were from?
Police department.
Do you recall if they were Waukesha Police Department or some other jurisdiction?
I'm pretty sure they were Waukesha, but I didn't ask.
Did those detectives ever follow up with you after those initial dates from that Monday, I think you said, and the Wednesday?
Never saw her again after Wednesday.
Did you yourself follow up with law enforcement after those two visits?
No.
And do you recall when you were subpoenaed to testify in this matter?
Late July,
Do you recall by whom?
Waukesha County District Attorney's Office.
Do you recall whose name was on that subpoena?
I would have to take a look at it to recall it.
And once you received the subpoena, did you call the Waukesha District Attorney's Office to gather any information about the subpoena?
On a few days getting close to October 3rd, I made a phone call to ask if I was going to be somebody that they needed on October 3rd because I hadn't heard anything from them.
Do you recall who you spoke with at that time?
I believe the person that gave me the information that was helpful to me was Gary Peterson.
It would be fair to say at that time you were notified that you possibly were needed to testify.
It was an unknown still at that point. Later, I received a text saying that I was on call.
Did you receive that text the same day that you called the District Attorney's Office or sometime after?
It might have been the same day. It might have been the next day.
Did you yourself at any time file any claims in relation to this matter?
No.
Do you know of anyone who filed any claim in relation to this matter?
That's a privacy issue.
You may answer the question.
I know that my grandchildren received counsel, and I think that a Waukesha Community Fund might have helped cover some of that.
Do you recall the name of the fund?
No.
And to your knowledge, the fund that you speak of was strictly geared towards counseling?
I'm not privy to what it was geared toward.
So would it be fair to say that there was a financial interest attached to this incident?
Absolutely not.
And how
There's a
did you
mental health interest.
And how's everybody doing now? Are they okay?
Objection, irrelevant.
Grounds.
Sustained.
For relevance.
Yes.
Have at any time you yourself had any personal interactions with the plaintiff in this matter? Grounds.
Sustained is to the form of the question.
Do you know if there is a plaintiff in this matter? Grounds.
Relevant.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Not relevant.
Do you recall if the plaintiff in this matter reached out to you in any way?
Objection.
Grounds.
Irrelevant. Asked and answered.
Grounds.
Sustained for those reasons.
Just for the record, it wasn't asked and answers for the record. Do you yourself know if there even is a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, I'd ask that Mr. Amerson be excused. State call. Leonard Miller. Mr. Miller, on November 21 of 2021, where did you reside?
Overruled.
Central Avenue.
Do you have any home security systems in place at your residence?
Objection, respectfully.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes, I have 2 doorbell cameras and a floodlight cam.
Were you contacted by the Waukesha Police Department?
It was actually that evening.
Tell us about it, please.
Well, actually, after everything transpired, I just got done setting up my Christmas lights. My wife came down from taking a shower, and I said, let's go look at the lights. We started to step out the front door, and there was actually a SWAT team in our front yard. After a little bit, I started looking through my cameras, and I noticed somebody running up my driveway on the one camera.
Did you
So
recognize the person?
I did not.
Okay.
Overruled. Answer may stand.
Saw somebody on the recording that you did not recognize.
Correct.
Asked and answered already.
What did you do when you saw that?
Called the Waukesha Police Department, and about an hour or so later, I believe it was a detective called me and asked if I could send them the copy of the video.
Prior to doing that, did you alter the content of the video in any fashion, sir?
No,
Overruled.
I'm going to put up on your screen next to you Exhibit 159. Do you believe this is a true and accurate depiction of the events at your home on November 21 of 2021?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
In the upper right-hand corner of the recording, I notice there's a date and time stamp. Do you see that?
Objection, leading.
I'll move to admit Exhibit 159, Your Honor.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Any cross, sir?
Yes, briefly. Good morning, Mr. Miller.
Good morning.
Before today, it would be fair to assume that you saw that footage before today.
Yes.
And you stated a little bit earlier that when stepping out to view the Christmas lights, you noticed a SWAT team in your yard?
Correct.
What do you mean by SWAT team?
Fully armed, rifles in hand, helmets on, officers in my front yard.
Did you notice any vehicle that they may have been in at that time?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question, please?
Did you notice at the time that you observed the SWAT team in your yard, did you notice any vehicle that they may have been in at that time?
I did observe a squad car down the street.
Do you recall what police agency you turned the video footage over to?
Yeah, it was the Waukesha Police Department.
Do you remember the name of the officer that you turned the video footage over to?
I do not.
Do you recall filing a report at that time?
No report was made.
So it'd be fair to say the extent of your interaction with law enforcement was strictly about the video footage?
Correct.
Do you recall if law enforcement followed up with you about the footage?
I don't believe so.
Did you yourself follow up with law enforcement about the video footage?
I did not.
And do you recall when you were subpoenaed to testify in this matter?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so
Sure.
Do you recall when you were subpoenaed to testify in this matter?
It was a few weeks ago.
And when you received the subpoena, did you follow up with the district attorney's office? I'm assuming that that's who served the subpoena.
I did.
Do you recall whom you spoke with?
I do not recall the name.
Did you yourself file any claims in relation to this matter?
I have not.
Do you know of anyone who filed a claim in relation to this matter?
Personally, no.
To the best of your recollection, do you recall being contacted by the plaintiff in this matter?
Other than regards to the summons, no.
You made reference to the summons.
Or subpoena.
Was the plaintiff's name on the subpoena?
I believe so.
Do you recall what that name was?
State of Wisconsin.
Have you ever had any interactions with the state of Wisconsin?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevant, vague, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained.
For those reasons, Your Honor, or being that you identified the state of Wisconsin as the plaintiff, have they ever reached out to you in any way?
Objection.
Grounds. Have you ever had any personal interaction with the state of Wisconsin?
Objection. Vague,
Grounds.
irrelevant, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained.
For those reasons, would you yourself classify the plaintiff that you identified, state of Wisconsin? Would you classify them as a living human being?
Objection.
Grounds.
Vague, irrelevant, argumentative.
Sustained for those reasons.
Would it be fair to say that a state cannot be a human being?
It could be argued philosophically, I guess, yes.
And-
but I don't know. No.
No.
Personally, no. But philosophically, I suppose you could argue that the state is a person.
The state, one state.
I suppose it could be argued.
And with determination, how did you come to that determination?
Objection. He said he did. Your Honor, that's a misstatement of his testimony.
Sustained is to the form of the question.
Do you see the state of Wisconsin present in the courtroom today?
Objection. Irrelevant.
Grounds.
Sustained,
What was the last part, Your Honor?
not relevant.
Have you ever seen the state of Wisconsin at any time?
Objection.
Grounds.
Argumentative.
Grounds.
Irrelevant.
Sustained for those reasons.
What reasons? I didn't hear.
For those reasons, it was also asked previously, and I sustained the objection.
That question wasn't asked previously, for the record. So to the best of your knowledge, is the state of Wisconsin an injured party in this matter?
Your Honor, I object and
Grounds.
ask you to direct the defendant to move on.
Grounds.
The
I
objection
think
is
the judge
sustained
has to do that, not
pursuant-
the DA.
The objection is sustained,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the reason for the sustain.
not relevant.
Your Honor, I object to it not being relevant. He clearly stated
Mr.
the
Brooks,
plaintiff.
please move on.
I don't know how that's not relevant. It seems to me that there's no plaintiff. There's no plaintiff. No further questions.
Any redirect.
No, I'd ask that Mr. Miller be excused.
Take a short mid-morning break. Appearances are as they were before. State have another witness to call this morning?
Yes.
All right, then let's have the jury brought out.
Your Honor, for the record, subject matter jurisdiction, as yet to be proven for the record.
Your objection to that is noted. I'm declining to revisit that issue, sir.
Is that a judicial determination?
It is. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Statement calls next witness, please.
State calls Specialist Kyle Beck. Sir, how are you employed?
City Wash Police Department.
What's your job type?
Warrant Specialist.
Directing your attention to the date of November 23, 2021. Were you on duty that day?
Yes, I was.
What duties were you tasked with on that day?
Me and several other officers, detectives were tasked with being part of the search team canvassing the area for items.
This is related to the investigation into the Christmas parade?
Objection, leading.
Yes.
So you said the purpose of the team was to look for items, did you say?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
And what day was this that you set out to do this?
November
Objection,
23rd,
leading.
2021.
Was there an objection or not?
Yes.
Overruled.
All right, I'm going to put up two items, photographs. First one would be Exhibit 94. Do you recognize what is depicted in Exhibit 94?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
It is the blue sandal.
Do you believe Exhibit 94 is a true and accurate depiction of the area where the sandal was found
Yes, I do.
and the exact location where the sandal was found?
Objection, leading.
Is 95 now on your screen, sir?
Yes, it is.
What is shown in 95?
The navy blue sandal.
How is 95 different from 94?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
They were the same exact sandal, just different pictures.
That's what I mean. What's the difference between the photographs?
Objection, leading.
Just the angle.
Do you believe that 95 is the accurate representation of where and how the sandal was found?
Yes, I do.
Move to admit 94 and 95 and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection, relevancy.
Permission to publish granted.
Sir, if you could just orient us in the picture there. You had described in your testimony a chain link fence, correct?
Correct.
Does that separate two properties?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes, it does separate two properties.
What are those properties?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
The where the sandal is located right now, that is on the address of 322 Maple Avenue, and the opposite side of the fence would be 434 Dunbar.
And 322 Maple, can you approximate for us the distance that is to the location where the red SUV was found?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to sustain it as to foundation. I think another question needs to be asked.
Sir, I think you testified earlier that you set out to search the area around 338 Maple, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And what was the significance of that address, please?
That was where the vehicle was located.
Could you please approximate for us the distance between residence where the vehicle was found and the residence where this sandal was found?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
Around 200 yards.
Can you please circle the sandal in the photograph? And then if we could please display 95. All right, now 95 is up, sir.
Same thing? Circle?
Sure.
Objection, leading.
Yes, please, sir.
Overruled. The witness may answer by circling.
I'd now like to show you a piece of physical evidence that's been marked as State's Exhibit 86.
Does that say 86?
I was going to ask the same thing because I missed that too. Can I have the number again?
What is 86? Move to admit 86, Your Honor.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
Officer Becker, did you find any other items of significance to this investigation?
Objection, leading.
What else did you find?
I found another blue sandal, and then I also located a gray hooded sweatshirt, same sweatshirt that we believed Mr. Brooks was wearing during the incident with the Waukesha parade.
Where did you find these items?
These items were located to that chain link fence that was up before earlier. I located a children's playhouse. This children's playhouse was made of wood. There also was a slide connected to it. I located in that platform area, I located the gray hooded sweatshirt, the same sweatshirt that we believe Mr. Brooks was wearing during that parade incident.
Sir, I'm going to display on your monitor Exhibit 96. Do you recognize what is portrayed in Exhibit 96?
Yes.
What is that?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
That is the children's playhouse where I found the gray hooded sweatshirt.
Do you believe the photograph is a true and accurate depiction of the yard and item that you described for us when you saw it that afternoon?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Go on to 97. What do we see in 97, sir?
That is the gray hooded sweatshirt.
Do you believe this is a true and accurate depiction as you observed the events on November 23 of 21?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Yes, it is.
All right, and then 98, please describe.
Obviously, the gray hooded sweatshirt.
Is this the position of these items as you found them, sir?
Yes, it was.
And do you believe this photograph is true and accurate as it's presented here today?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Move to admit 96, 97, and 98, and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Permission to publish is granted as to each.
All right, Officer Becker, could you please circle for the jury the children's playhouse that you've been describing for us in 96?
Yes.
In 97? This is a close-up of that same playhouse?
Yes.
Do you see the sweatshirt in this image, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, I do.
Please circle it. To 98, please. And those are the two items together in the top portion of the playhouse, is that right?
Yes, that is.
All right. Now I'm going to show you these physical items. Please, Deputy, if you would assist me again. Do you recognize item number 84, sir?
Yes.
What is that?
Objection leading.
Go ahead, you may answer, sir.
Yes, this was the gray hooded sweatshirt.
And 85. Please identify.
This is the other sandal, which was left-footed.
Your Honor, move to admit 84 and 85.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled.
And I'd like to ask, with the court's permission, if 84 can be published by the officer standing up and holding up 84 for the jury to view.
Objection relevancy.
Permission granted.
Please hold up the sweatshirt, sir.
Objection noted.
Yes.
And then if you would do the same thing, please, sir, you could set that one down, and if you could hold up 84 and 85, one in each hand, and display those for the jury, if that's okay, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, 85 and 86.
Objection.
Your objection's noted. Go ahead. The
Specialist Becker, did you check with the homeowner to make sure that the property you just displayed did not belong to the homeowner?
Objection speculative.
I personally did not. Somebody else may have.
And how about the sandal by the cyclone fence on the ground? Did officers check with the homeowner at that residence? Well,
Objection
if you know.
speculative.
overruled if he knows.
I do not know. I didn't personally.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions.
All right. Any cross for this witness?
Yes, just 1 second. You testified earlier in questioning, well, rather, let me back up. You said the name of the alleged suspect when questioned about the alleged suspect fleeing from the vehicle. At that time, did you know the name of the alleged suspect?
Yes, we did.
And how did you obtain that information?
From the detectives working the case.
So you yourself didn't know until you were told. Would that be fair to say?
I was part of the brief, so I knew too.
So you knew before you were briefed?
Yes.
So you knew before you were briefed, then why did you have to be briefed about that information?
We briefed every morning because every detective was working something different, so we just kind of gathered as a group like we do every morning.
Were you a part of the investigation the night of the incident?
Yes, I was.
And what was your what was your role in the investigation the night of the incident?
Well, I was activated for our SWAT team. I'm part of our Waukesha Police Department SWAT team due to the fact of all the injuries and victims and unknown suspects. At the time, we got activated for our SWAT team.
And you said unknown suspects. What do you mean?
At the time of the incident, we didn't know exactly who the suspects were. If there was one or two at the time, we got activated right away.
So is it possible that you didn't receive information of the alleged defendant until that evening?
I do not recall when exactly we found out who our main suspect was.
And in reference to the sweatshirt that you observed in the children's playpen, do you have any information of how that got there?
Not exactly, no, because I didn't follow the footsteps of Darrell Brooks that night.
And seeing as how that you were actively investigating that portion of the investigation, why did you not ask the homeowners if the items belonged to them?
I did not ask them. I located it, and then it was turned over to more of the detectives that were handling the case.
The question was why didn't you ask them?
the homeowners?
I don't know. I just didn't.
So it'd be fair to say you didn't know who the items belonged to at that point.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You made reference to, and the word you used was belief. You made reference to belief that the alleged suspect jumped the fence, and I guess that would refer to where the slide, as you referred it to, was found. How did you come to the determination that a fence was jumped?
There's been multiple times where suspects jump over fences to try to get away from police, so that's why I came to that conclusion.
Did you chase any suspect during your investigation?
No, I did not.
So it would be fair to say that you don't know for sure if any suspect jumped the fence.
That is fair enough, but just that's what I believe may have happened.
So it would be fair to say you weren't sure exactly.
I guess you could say I wasn't 100% sure.
Testified earlier, and I don't want to misquote you, I think it was some question of determining the distance. I don't know if that was in reference to where the vehicle was found and where the items that you found were located. Was that the distance that was being referred to?
Yes, I believe so.
Thanks for that clarification. I didn't want to misquote you. How were you exactly able to determine the exact distance of that?
I wasn't able to. I think I may have stated it's a rough estimate.
So it would be fair to say you don't know for sure the distance?
No, I do not.
Did you at any time see anyone, I guess I will refer to alleged suspect, did you at any time see any alleged suspect drop any items?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any alleged suspects remove any items?
No, I did not.
And you stated that your search investigation was the next morning?
It was November 23rd.
Do you recall when that part of your investigation ended?
I don't know how long we were out there exactly.
And was that the extent of your part of the investigation after you completed the investigation part on the 23rd of November 2021?
Yes, that is correct.
At any time after that, did you follow up with your part of the investigation where it was positioned in the investigation in full?
No, everything was turned over that day.
Were you ever after that date followed up with by any law enforcement after that initial date?
Don't really understand what you're saying.
After your part of the investigation was completed on that day, the 23rd of November 2021, did any law enforcement officers follow up with you about your part of the investigation?
Not that I recall.
And you said you turned the items over to crime lab, or?
No, it was a criminal evidence and forensic unit of the Waukesha Police Department.
From that point, do you know what happened to the items?
No, I do not.
Do you know of any procedure once you turn over the items? And, well, I believe you said can you say it again? I'm sorry.
Criminal evidence forensic unit.
Is there any procedure after that in reference to the items? Like what may be done to the items?
Yeah, they would place them into inventory at the Waukesha Police Department.
So once you turn over the items, that's pretty much the end of your part of it?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that these items have been kept for quite a while now? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Are items usually kept for this length of time in the investigation?
Yes, typically yes, till the case is over.
So it isn't unusual in any way to see items kept roughly a year or so?
No, that's not unusual, especially if it's evidence to a crime.
And what usually happens to the items after the investigation is complete?
You would have to ask the Criminal Investigations Division, because I don't know how they released those items.
So you're not sure, to your best of your knowledge, you're not sure?
No, I'm not.
Do you recall making a report in this matter?
Yes, I do.
Did you write it yourself, or was it typed by someone else?
No, I believe I wrote my own report.
And you stated that this would be called a canvas search team?
Yes, that's correct.
And you stated or made reference to it being like a SWAT team?
No, I recall that you asked what I did the prior day of the parade incident. Now, I just advised you that I was activated for our SWAT team that day of the parade incident.
So, in reference to the SWAT team statement, what do you mean by SWAT team?
Our tactical unit at the Waukesha Police Department.
And what do you mean by canvas search team? Can you explain what exactly is a canvas search team?
That is the group of individuals that we had in our Criminal Investigations Division gathered as a group. There's about 10 of us, and we searched the area to try looking for items.
And do you wear regular law enforcement gear, or is there any change in the gear?
Yeah, regular law enforcement gear.
To the best of your knowledge, did you yourself file any claims in this matter?
No, I did not.
You know of anyone who filed any claims in this matter?
No.
Have you at any time saw or read a complaint in this matter?
No.
And do you recall who you were subpoenaed by to testify in this matter?
Yeah, State of Wisconsin.
And who do you refer to when you say State of Wisconsin?
District Attorney's Office, Waukesha County District Attorney's Office.
Do you recall whose name was on the subpoena?
I do not recall. I'd have to look at the paperwork.
So to the best of your knowledge, would the State of Wisconsin be the plaintiff in this matter?
Yes.
And do you see the State of Wisconsin plaintiff in court today?
Objection.
Grounds.
Proper vague question.
Is the plaintiff present in court today, to your knowledge?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevant.
Do you recall having any personal interactions with the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds. Have you ever been contacted by the plaintiff in this matter?
Same objection.
Grounds. If you were to see the plaintiff, State of Wisconsin, will you be able to identify Your Honor.
Objection argumentative.
Grounds. Would you classify the plaintiff state of Wisconsin as a human being or entity?
Objection irrelevant.
Grounds.
Sustained, not relevant.
Would it be fair to say this isn't your first time during your career testifying in any type of criminal matter?
Yes.
Yes, as in.
I have testified before.
So it would be fair to assume that you understand plaintiffs and defendants, correct?
Objection
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Sustained, not relevant.
Are you aware that only a living human being can bring a claim against a defendant?
Objection irrelevant. Argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained for those reasons.
To the best of your knowledge, who can bring a claim against an alleged defendant?
Objection irrelevant.
Sustained, not relevant.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
No redirect of this officer, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now be taken to a garage attached to the Waukesha County Courthouse to view the vehicle recovered by the Waukesha Police Department. All right, then I know the jury is ready to be brought back out. I believe the state has additional witnesses.
We do, Your Honor, and I have another large poster board that I'd like to show at the next witness.
Since there's no jury out, you can put that on the witness stand now. Anything from you, sir?
In regards to this,
Any other preliminary matters?
were my filings actually filed?
You're talking about from this morning?
Yes.
Have they been scanned in so that you can get the originals back? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So I have one from October 5, one from October 13. Just so we're clear, sir, I'm providing these as a courtesy back to you because the clerk's office policy is once they're scanned in, they are destroyed. With that, we'll have the jurors brought out.
Subject matter jurisdiction, Your Honor.
The court's declining to address that further.
So we won't be proving it for the record. Just your determination.
It is a judicial determination. The state may call its next witness.
Thank you. The state will call Detective Justin Rowe. Detective, how are you currently employed?
City of Waukesha Police Department.
I'd like to direct your attention to the date of November 23, 2021. Were you on duty that day, sir?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall what your assignment was that day?
I was tasked with going to the Maple Avenue and Northwest Avenue area neighborhoods to search for items that may have been discarded by Darrell Brooks.
Were you present when any items were discovered that were relevant?
Yes, I was.
And just very briefly describe what those items were, sir.
Objection leading.
Now, in addition to looking for items, did you and other detectives attempt to obtain video from homeowners and businesses in the area?
Objection leading.
And do you recall obtaining a video from the school district?
Yes, we did.
And do you recall what building or buildings from the school district video was recovered from?
Objection leading.
Did you also obtain video from homeowners on Dunbar?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, we did.
Specifically 435 Dunbar?
Correct.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Did you have an opportunity to review those videos that were collected?
I did.
And would you see anything of significance to this investigation in any of those videos?
Objection speculative.
I'm going to show you an item that's been marked as exhibit number 131.
What exhibit is it?
This is 131, Mr. Brooks. What do you know exhibit 131 to contain, Detective Rowe?
This is a video that is taken from 425 Dunbar Avenue, and near the upper left-hand corner, there is a red sort of blur near the bottom of a driveway right before the intersection. And that is going to be Darrell Brooks on that sidewalk, and he's going to cross the street.
Do you know what's in exhibit 131?
Yes, I do.
Does it contain more than one video, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I believe this is one video of it itself.
Sure, but the exhibit contains multiple videos and
Correct.
still shots?
Yes.
Objection noted. I'll overrule it.
I'm going to ask the assistant to play this video for you at your monitor, and then I'll ask you a question, okay?
Okay.
Before you do that, for the record, how long of a clip is it?
Your Honor, I don't know that I can tell you exactly until we get to the end.
Looks like 9 minutes or something.
9 seconds and
Oh.
9.56 seconds. Were you able to observe the video?
Yes.
And were you able to observe anything of significance to this investigation in the video?
Objection speculative.
It appears the defendant is crossing the street.
Are you aware of the other videos and pictures contained in Exhibit 131?
Yes.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I'll move to admit 131 and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection speculative video.
Your objection is noted. It is overruled. Did you ask for permission to publish?
I did.
Go ahead.
For the record, Your Honor, this is a PowerPoint. What's being displayed at the moment is slide number 1. Please play. All right, the video has played completely, Your Honor. I'm going to ask to move to slide number 2. Do you see what's shown on slide number 2, Detective Rowe?
Yes.
Obviously, the zoomed-in image is quite blurry.
Absolutely.
When we played slide 1, were you able to make out any details about the person in slide 1 that was crossing the street?
Yes, it appeared the person had a red shirt.
All right, we're going to go to slide number 3. And you testified about receiving video from the school building.
Objection leading.
What is shown on slide 3?
Slide 3 is a view towards the rear parking lot of the Lindholm building.
And I'm going to request that we play the video in slide number 3, Your Honor, in its entirety.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. You may play.
Did it play? Yep. I'm sorry, I missed it. Okay, we'll go to slide, next slide. Lost track. We're on 4 or 5. Going to slide number 4. What are we seeing on?
A still shot of the previous video we just viewed.
What do you recall about what you were able to observe about the figure or subject walking there behind the school?
Objection leading.
Next slide, please. Do you recognize the image in slide number 5?
Yes.
Please tell us what you recognize this area to be.
This is also the Lindholm building.
I'm going to ask that we play this clip, Your Honor, and for the record, it's a total of 20.81 seconds.
Go ahead.
Objection.
Your objection's noted. Go ahead and play.
Thank you. Please turn to the next slide. What do we see in slide number 6?
A still shot of the video.
Next slide, slide 7. So currently we're looking at a black screen, correct?
Yes.
Do you know what this video is going to show, sir?
Objection speculative. He's black.
Excuse me.
All right, next slide, please. What do we see on this final slide, sir?
Upper left-hand corner is a still shot from the video.
That completes Exhibit 131. Detective Rowe, based on these video clips that you obtained and the canvas that you and your team did in the neighborhood, were you able to put together a map basically tracking the travels of Darrell Brooks through the neighborhood that afternoon?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name in this leading.
The objections are noted. Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
Do you know the location where Darrell Brooks was arrested?
Objection.
Yeah.
I don't consent to being called that name. Effective.
He was arrested on Elizabeth Street.
And are you aware of reports to other officers as far as citizens that had contact with Mr. Brooks in the area of Elizabeth Street?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. Leading.
Noted. The witness may answer.
Behind you, sir, is a large poster board that's facing backwards. I'm going to ask you to please assist me by putting that face forward on the easel behind you. Before you sit down, Detective Rowe,
Sure.
in the bottom right-hand corner of that poster board, there is a sticker. Do you see that?
Yes, it is.
Objection leading.
Detective Rowe, do you believe that Exhibit 130 is an accurate summary of the travels and the contacts by Mr. Brooks on the evening of November 21, 2021?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled.
Move to admit 130 and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection.
I'm sorry. I cut you off. What's the basis, if you have?
Relevancy.
The objection is noted. It is overruled.
Detective Rowe, I know we're back out so we can see the whole map at this point. We will zoom in a moment, but the northernmost event that's reflected on the map reads what?
Officer Skolton shoots at SUV at 4:39 p.m.
Okay, do you know that to be accurate based on your knowledge of this investigation?
Objection leading.
And then there appears to be a red line from that point going south down the middle or right side of the map. Do you see where I'm referring to, sir?
Objection
Yes, I do.
leading.
Overruled.
What does that red line from the star where we noted Officer Skolton fired, the red line going south, what does that represent, sir?
The solid red line is the route taken by vehicle.
And where did it go? What roads?
Objection leading.
Vehicle traveled south on Northwest Avenue, made a left-hand turn to go east onto Prospect Court. Vehicle then drove behind some residences before coming to a rest in the driveway of 338 Maple.
You said the vehicle traveled through the backyards off of Prospect Court, is that right?
That's
Objection.
correct.
Accident. Yes, sir.
Using the touchscreen, can you point out the path of the vehicle that you just were describing for us?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
It came down West Avenue, right?
Yes.
And what road did it turn onto?
Turned east onto Prospect Court.
When it turns off of Prospect Court, is that a road?
Objection leading.
Which question were you objecting to?
The last one.
About which way it turned or turning onto Prospect?
The way it was actually.
You know what? I don't even remember what it was, so I'll sustain it and ask the state to re-ask.
At some point, did the vehicle leave Prospect Court?
Yes, it did.
When it did that, was it on a roadway?
No.
So the line you drew south from Prospect Court represents what, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Backyards?
On the far right corner of the map, do you see a blue dot in the same area we're talking about here?
Objection leading.
And what's the address of Les Paul School,
Objection.
if you know, or the
Relevancy.
street?
Overruled.
Stop drawing your line there, your yellow line over the red line. You see what I'm referring to?
Yes.
And in that area, I notice the line becomes dashed. Do you see that?
Yes.
Objection leading.
The dashed line is the path that the defendant took on foot.
And do you see then, moving back to the left on the map, the two boxes in white depicting where the sandals were recovered?
Objection leading.
Yes.
The dashed line then moves, so there's two green X's, correct? You see where I'm referring to, sir?
Objection leading.
This is a point where the defendant is traversing through yards.
And did we just see the video of him crossing the street there on Dunbar?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Is the Wyndham building on this map?
Yes.
Did we just see the two videos from those two cameras at the Wyndham building in the last exhibit, 131?
Objection leading.
Yes.
What's the next event that's noted, sir?
So the first thing that I see is makes a phone call at 4:47 p.m. Dominic Caprone at 417 Central Avenue.
Is that the location of Central Avenue, sir? I'm
Yes.
sorry, 417 Central Avenue?
Objection leading.
Yes, it is.
And are you aware of conversation also reported by Sean Backler at his residence on Central Avenue?
Yes.
Can you please circle these two conversations that you just identified for us?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Now I see the dash line moving to the west again. Do you see that, sir?
Yes.
What's happening in this area, please?
Objection speculative.
This is the camera at 126 Central Avenue. Mr. Brooks is seen on camera moving to the west.
Was that in Exhibit 131 that we just showed the jury?
Objection leading.
Yes.
Which video was that one? Do you remember?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
It was the, I believe it was the last video that we had watched.
Now at this point the dash line ends. Is that right?
That's correct.
Why is that?
Objection speculative.
Because we don't have any indication as to where or when Mr. Brooks crossed West Avenue to get to Elizabeth Street.
Are you aware that there was a reported contact between Mr. Brooks and a witness identified as Aaron CODIS?
Objection leading.
Could you identify Aries Industries? Are you aware of video from that location showing a person appearing to be Mr. Brooks approaching the front door lobby of the business?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Noted. The witness may answer.
Speculative.
Overruled.
Do you believe this map is an accurate documentation of the investigation, again, as to the travel of Darrell Brooks this evening, on the evening of November 21?
Objection speculative, and I don't consent to being called that name.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you believe this map is an accurate summary of the travel and whereabouts of Darrell Brooks at various points on the evening of November 21?
Objection speculative, and I don't consent to being called that name.
Yes.
Thank you, Detective. I don't have any other questions.
Any cross-exam for this witness, sir?
Yep. So, Officer Rowe, you repeatedly referred to the alleged defendant's name. How did you come into that information?
Based on the entirety of the investigation.
And when did you come into the knowledge of the alleged defendant's name?
I don't remember.
When did your part of the investigation start?
After he drove the SUV through the parade, I was called at home, come in and help the departments with the investigation.
And just so we clear for the record, is the jury asking you questions or me?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question. Repeat your question.
Well, I was referring to when I ask a question, he turns towards the jury as if they're the ones asking the question.
It's not a question, Your Honor.
It is a question.
We did ask a question about that.
Yes.
I think you're asking why does he do that? To that extent, the witness may answer.
I'm here to present the case to the jury.
So follow that fundamentally. But for the sake of making sure you hear the questions right, wouldn't it be fair to say that you should pay attention to the questions being answered, being asked, rather?
Assumes the fact, not in evidence.
Wouldn't it make sense to focus on the questions so you can hear them clearly?
Objection argumentative still assumes the fact, not in evidence.
Same.
You made reference to you being here to present the case to the jury. So is that the reason why you decided to testify?
Objection to the relevance.
Grounds?
Overruled. The witness may answer.
I don't understand your question.
Were you able to hear my question clearly?
I don't understand your question.
Were you able to hear my question clearly?
Objection argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
What was not understood about the question that you were asked?
Objection, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained.
What wasn't clear about what I was asking?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
The objection is sustained.
Was your sole reason for testifying here today?
Objection, relevance.
Let's let Mr. Brooks get the question out. Go ahead.
Apologize, I thought that was it.
Are you testifying today strictly to prove your case to the jury?
Objection, misstatement of his testimony.
Grounds. That's what he said.
Sustained misstates the prior testimony.
That's what he said. So why did you decide to testify here today?
Objection, that's a legally inaccurate question, Your Honor.
Please rephrase the question. I'm sustaining.
I don't know how I'm supposed to rephrase that without having the same form of the question. That helps.
I'll rule if there's an objection, but ask a question, please.
Did you seek to testify here today in this matter?
No.
So how did you ultimately come to that decision?
Objection, that's a misstatement, Your Honor. It was not his decision.
Sustained as to the form of the question assumes a fact, not an evidence.
Were you subpoenaed?
Yes.
Do you recall by whom you were subpoenaed to testify?
District Attorney Sue Opper from the Washington County District Attorney's Office.
And at that time you were subpoenaed, you decided to testify.
I don't believe it's my decision.
Well, it would be fair to say that you didn't have to show up, right? That'd be fair to say?
No, I had to show up.
But would it be fair to say that you could have chosen not to?
No, it would not be fair to say that.
Exhibit 131 that was shown to you, have you seen that video footage before today?
Yes, I have.
Do you recall who showed it to you before today?
I don't recall who showed it to me.
Would it be fair to say you've seen it multiple times before today?
Yes, I've seen it a number of times.
And do you recall when you were first shown that video?
Not off the top of my head.
Was it the same day of the incident, the days following, sometime after?
I don't recall when I saw the video the first time.
And what about Exhibit 130? Had you seen that video footage before today?
Objection, Your Honor. 130 is the map.
Or the map? Had you seen the map before today?
Can I ask the question again, please?
Had you seen the map of Exhibit 130 before today?
Yes, I have.
Multiple times as well?
Yes, numerous times.
Any idea why you viewed it so many times, multiple times?
Unsure.
Were you able to obtain any more information upon seeing the map numerous times that you didn't obtain when first seeing the map?
No.
So it would be fair to say you pretty much knew what the map was detailing each and every time you saw it?
Yes.
And on that map, Exhibit 130, you made reference to at some point the dotted line, it stops at some point. That'd be fair to say?
Could you be more specific?
The dotted line that was referred to on the map.
Do you want the map brought up? Would that be helpful to you?
Or maybe it might be helpful to him.
He's got the large map, but if you want to...
So if you can see the dotted line on the map behind you,
Yes.
is it fair to say that the dotted line stops at some point? Around Central Avenue, maybe?
Yes, there's a couple lines that seem to come to Central Avenue or egress out of Central Avenue that do stop.
And you stated that, well, what was the reason that you stated that line stops, the dotted line?
It's because we don't know the exact location where you cross the street.
And why, were there no cameras present at that point? Or how did you lose the path of travel at that point?
We didn't find any cameras or any eyewitnesses in that area.
So it would be fair to say at that point you weren't sure what happened.
I know that you crossed the street at some point. We just don't know where.
How do you know that?
Because you were arrested on Elizabeth Street.
Did you see any crossing of, I think you said that was West, would that be West Avenue that you were referring to that you don't see any crossing of?
What's your question?
Is that West Avenue that you stated that you didn't see any crossing of?
That is Northwest Avenue.
Or Northwest Avenue, I'm sorry, I don't know the streets. Northwest Avenue, and you don't have any visual footage or any eyewitnesses, as you said, to say for sure if Northwest Avenue is crossed.
We didn't obtain any witness statements or any eyewitness or any video of the suspect crossing the street.
And what day were you doing your part of the investigation? Was that the same evening or the next few days after the incident, or?
Can you clarify which investigation you're talking about?
The one that you took part in, your part of the investigation.
I don't understand what time frame you're asking for.
What day did you start your part of the investigation?
Well, we started the investigation as soon as he ran people over in the parade.
You were there?
I responded to the parade after he had done that.
Were you at the parade?
No, I was not.
So it'd be fair to say you were on call?
No, I was not.
So it'd be fair to say you don't know when your part of the investigation started then, right?
Would not be fair to say that.
You don't recall what time it was when you started your part of the investigation?
As soon as I responded.
And you don't recall when you were dispatched to respond?
It's in my report.
And at that time, did you know the identity or name of any alleged suspects at that time that you were dispatched?
The time that I was sent to the city of Waukesha, I did not know the identity of the suspect.
You made reference to a report. Do you recall when you wrote that report, or did you write the report yourself?
Yes, I typically type my own reports.
And do you recall when you submitted that report?
I have no idea what day I submitted the report.
So when you were first dispatched, what did you do?
I drove to the city of Waukesha and met with members at the Waukesha Police Command Unit.
And were you dispatched to any location from that point?
I was not dispatched.
Were you sent to any location from that point?
I was assigned with taking a number of investigators with myself and walking the entire parade route and obtaining phone numbers and names of people who were present at the parade and who had witnessed something.
So it would be fair to say you did some interviews at that time?
Yes.
Do you recall how many?
No.
And after conducting these interviews, what did you do?
I went home.
So at that time, after conducting your interviews and then going back to your home, did you have the name or ID of any suspects at that time?
Yes.
And whom were you told by?
I don't recall.
Do you recall who you submitted your typed report to?
I don't understand your question.
Do you recall who you submitted your typed police report to?
No.
I'm assuming your law enforcement agency doesn't type up reports and just leave them sitting on the desk. Would that be fair to say?
That'd be correct.
Any reason why you wouldn't recall who you gave your report to?
Well, it's electronically submitted.
And from there, does it have a specific sergeant or lieutenant or captain or someone that it goes to from that point, if you recall, or if you know?
I wouldn't know.
So it'd be fair to say once you type a report and submit it, you're not sure who sees it?
Correct.
Would you say it's fair that because of you not knowing who your report is submitted to, that your report can be altered in some kind of way, especially being that you don't know who sees it?
The reports are done via PDF style reporting. It's protected by my username and my password. And when it's submitted, it's usually not altered unless I request it to be altered.
But it is fair to say that there's a possibility that it could be tampered with because you don't know for sure who all sees it.
It's entirely inaccurate.
How so?
My report is the way that it was written, the way that I wrote it myself.
So you've had a chance to read your submitted report after you submitted it?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, is exactly word for word as you remember typing it?
It is my report. It is what I typed, and it is accurate.
Word for word?
Yes.
Do you recall how many pages long the report was?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained. Not relevant. Please move on.
Do you recall if the report was lengthy?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Grounds for the sustained?
Relevance.
And you stated that you read the report after you submitted it. Do you know how long it was before you were able to see the report that you typed?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Well, he already answered that.
Then I'll object as asked and answered, Your Honor.
Sustained.
That question wasn't answered, but okay. I see. Do you recall when you typed your report?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained. Not relevant.
How's that not relevant if he already answered that he typed the report?
Please continue, sir.
Grounds for the sustained.
Relevance.
He answered that he typed a report. So how's it not relevant if he recalls when he typed it?
Please continue, sir.
You got to be kidding me. Did you file any claim related to this matter?
No.
Do you know of anyone who did?
Did what?
Do you know of anyone who filed a claim in relation to this incident?
No.
Do you know who the plaintiff is in this incident?
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance.
You may answer that question. Go ahead.
Can you ask the question again?
Do you know who the plaintiff is in this incident?
Well, plaintiff would be the state of Wisconsin.
Is the state of Wisconsin a human being or entity?
Objection,
Grounds.
argumentative.
Sustained. On relevance grounds.
Have you ever had any interaction with the plaintiff in this incident?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevant, legally inaccurate.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Were you ever contacted by the plaintiff in this incident?
Same objection.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Would you call the state of Wisconsin a living, breathing human being or
Asked and
entity?
answered.
Grounds, because I didn't ask that question.
It's not relevant. Sustained. Next question.
It's very relevant. Seems like there's no plaintiff.
Jury will disregard statements made by
Come
the
on, man.
attorneys
Come on, man.
and
You're
the
trying to
parties.
be
They are
slick.
not evidence. Please
Stop
ask
trying to
the
be
question.
slick. So to your knowledge, the plaintiff is the state of Wisconsin. Do you see him present in the courtroom today?
Objection,
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Sustained.
Can you identify the plaintiff, state of Wisconsin?
Same objection.
Grounds.
Sustained. Sir, please continue. Not on this topic. Next question, please.
To the best of your knowledge, you're not even sure if you've ever even had any interaction with the plaintiff, state of Wisconsin, correct?
Objection, argumentative, and compound.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Definitely wasn't compound. Would you consider yourself an injured party in this incident?
Objection,
Grounds.
argumentative.
The witness may answer.
No.
Have you read or seen any complaint?
No.
No further questions.
Can I redirect?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down. The state may call its next witness. Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
Sir, how are you employed?
I work for the Wisconsin State Patrol.
What is your current position?
I'm the mechanical inspector for the Wisconsin State Patrol Technical Reconstruction Unit.
Can you describe the duties of that position?
Objection, relevancy.
To conduct thorough and systematic inspections of vehicles that have been involved in crashes.
Did you receive any training in order to perform those duties?
Objection, relevancy.
Can you briefly describe that training for the jury?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
A lot of the training that I received was on the job, and in addition to that, I have ASE and SAE certifications.
Not having any interest in cars, what are those certifications?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
On December 6, 2021, were you directed to go to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab to view a vehicle?
Objection, leading.
What information did you have prior to going to that location?
Objection, speculative.
Did you do a mechanical inspection of the vehicle that you were sent to look at?
Objection, leading.
After performing your inspection, did you draft a report?
Yes, I did.
And did that report contain the findings of your mechanical inspection from December 6th?
Objection, leading.
I provided to you, prior to you going up on the stand, what's been marked as State's Exhibit 83. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
Can you briefly identify it for how it's labeled, how many pages it consists of?
What exhibit is that?
Exhibit 83.
It's the Crash Reconstruction Mechanical Inspection Report.
The whole report is exhibit 83?
Correct.
Yes.
The whole report?
Go ahead. I haven't ruled on it yet.
Sir, how many pages does this report consist of?
10.
And that is front and back sides?
Correct.
Objection.
Overruled.
What car were you inspecting?
Objection, leading.
2010 Ford Escape.
And what color was it?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Red.
Objection. I have the 10 pages and nowhere on here does it say exhibit. Nowhere on here.
That's because it was marked for purposes of trial. It has an exhibit sticker now. Objections noted. It's overruled, and the
Why am I
witness.
not privy to the same?
The witness may answer the question. It's been marked as an exhibit.
Does it give a drivetrain description on that first page?
Yes, it does.
And first of all, I don't know what that means, but what is that?
Objection, leading.
How it's operated on the roadways.
Is there a picture on the front of Exhibit 83
Yes.
Objection, leading.
It's a picture of the 2010 Escape.
that you did the mechanical inspection on?
Objection, leading.
You authored this report?
I did.
Have you had a chance to review it since you've authored it?
Yes.
Is the information contained within this report accurate?
Objection, leading.
Yes, it is.
I would move State's Exhibit 83 into evidence.
Objection.
Exhibit 83 is received.
So is my paperwork ever going to say exhibit 83? Or is it just going to be this?
Mr. Brooks, I'll take that up outside the presence of the jury later, but we're going to continue.
It
Go
was brought
ahead.
up in front of the jury.
We're going to continue with the questioning of this witness.
What is y'all trying to pull here?
Mr. Brooks, please.
This is
No one's.
No police, nothing.
The exhibit, to my understanding, has previously been provided to you. You have it. It's now been marked as an exhibit for trial
Y'all got
purposes.
something I don't have, though.
Go ahead.
That's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be fair.
Attorney Basie, I trust that this was previously turned over.
It was, and I believe the defendant has a copy of it in front of him.
Thank
And
you.
where does it
Please
say
continue.
exhibit 83? It doesn't say that this was going
Again,
to be
we'll take
used
this
as
up
an
outside the
exhibit.
presence of the jury later. It's not something we need to do right now. Go ahead and ask your questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I would object and move to strike from the record any commentary that the defendant was making in the last 5 minutes.
What was that?
Court will strike the commentary that was made. I'm not sure if it was picked up or not, but as a reminder to the jurors, the statements made by parties and lawyers are not evidence.
Do you know why you had to go to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab in order to do the inspection?
Objection, leading.
So the first section of your report, and I'm just going to direct your attention to page 3 of Exhibit 83, talks about the tires and the suspension and tie rods. Do you see that?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Describe this part of the inspection.
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer. The report's been received by the court, and the state may direct the witness to various points at its discretion.
When was it made an exhibit? Because I wasn't aware of that.
Sir, can you describe the information under the heading tires, wheels, steering, suspension, brakes?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
What observations did you make?
First, on axle 1 left, the tie rod end was worn, about 1/8 of an inch of play in the tie rod end, in the ball joint itself. So when you turn the steering wheel or turn the wheel, there was a little bit of play in the tie rod. Still attached, still intact, still functioning, still able to steer the vehicle.
Was that something that would create any problems in operating the car, for example, on November 21st, 2021?
Objection speculative.
Overruled. He's been qualified under 907.02. I direct your attention to 907.02 through 907.07, Mr. Brooks.
I don't consent to being called that name, and that's referring to a specific date. How do we know that's not speculation?
The objections noted, it's overruled.
It would not. The vehicle would still steer and drive.
What other observations did you make?
All the tires were evenly worn on all 4 axle ends. The left rear axle, the tire on that axle was bigger than the other 3. The tires that are recommended to be on the vehicle are size 235/70 R16, which was what was equipped on the vehicle, except on the left rear, which was 245/75 R16, which is 1 full size bigger. 1 size bigger in tire is usually not the end of the world, being that it's the single tire can have an effect, but it's on the rear of the vehicle. The only time it would be notable would be during a heavy ABS brake application, and that would be at a higher rate of speed with full brake application where the ABS system kicks in on the vehicle. That's where it could be noticeable.
When you say at higher speeds, are we talking, what are we talking?
Higher speed.
Overruled.
55 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour or greater.
Let me clarify if I didn't ask you this. The information you were provided was that this vehicle was involved in a crash?
Objection. Ask and answer.
So with regards to the braking system, was there anything at all in your inspection of that vehicle that would have caused the brakes not to work or not to work effectively prior to the crash?
Objection speculative.
No, I did not.
Since your inspection took place after the crash, would that be your same answer with regard to, as it was on December 6, 2021, there were no brake problems?
Objection speculative.
The next area that I inspected was the electronic system. Both headlights the lenses were damaged, but the lights were still working. The lights were in the high beam position and in the automatic position from the driver's cabin.
What does that indicate?
Objection leading.
From there, just examine the throttle linkage, horn, and the other driver controls from inside the cabin.
So let's talk about the throttle controls. First of all, what is that?
Objection.
Overruled.
Did there appear to be any problems with the throttle?
No, there was not.
I know you call it a throttle, I call it a gas pedal. It's one and the same, correct?
Objection leading.
Did you check the power steering system?
I did.
And what observations did you make of that?
Aside from the ball joint that was loose that I described earlier, the entire rest of the power steering system was intact and functioning properly.
So there are no problems that would cause the car not to steer appropriately?
Objection leading.
Now, in your report, you indicate a gross vehicle weight rating. Do you see that on page 5 of 10?
Objection relevancy.
Yes, I do.
What is that?
The gross vehicle weight rating is the amount of weight that the vehicle can physically carry safely, and that number is administered by the manufacturer.
So that includes people within that car? Is that what you're saying?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
And the curb weight, what is that? I mean, generally, what is it now?
Objection leading.
If someone had reported hearing a clicking sound while this car was driving in front of them, was there anything that you found in your report that would be consistent with a clicking sound being heard?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
There was a lot of damage to the front of the vehicle. It would be impossible to say what a clicking noise could come from. I was actually not able to drive it physically to test it. I was only able to just start it.
Can I ask why you were unable to drive it?
Objection relevancy.
Overruled.
There wasn't enough gas in the vehicle to move it.
So the car was on empty when you observed it?
Objection leading.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
How much gas was in the car when you inspected it?
Objection leading. Ask and answer.
Overruled.
There was, the gauge read E for empty, and the notation on the infotainment center originally said 2 miles to empty, and then on the second key cycle it said 1 mile to empty.
When you said key cycle, when you started it, when you turned the key, what observations, if any, did you make?
Objection leading.
Now, if a witness had testified that when the vehicle went in front of them, they heard a high-pitched, like a revving sound, based upon your examination, what would that be consistent with?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
It could be an exhaust-related item, it could be a lot of different things.
When you were doing an examination of the undercarriage of the vehicle, did you observe a muffler?
No, I did not.
I want to show you what's been previously admitted, Exhibit 73. It'll show on the screen in front of you, and I'd ask that it be published as well.
Objection leading.
Sir, do you see the picture that's marked Exhibit 73?
I do.
What is depicted in that photograph?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
That it appears to be an exhaust muffler.
The muffler that's observed in this picture, would that be consistent or inconsistent with a 2010 Ford Escape?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled. This witness may answer and provide an opinion. Go ahead.
By just looking at a picture.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Man, y'all think y'all
You can cross-examine the witness about that, sir.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
got to. Y'all trying to pull a fast one.
It is a vehicle muffler. It would be impossible to see what vehicle it came from, but it is an automotive muffler.
Do you check to see if there are any recalls of a vehicle in coming to your conclusion?
Objection, speculative, and do we still need this exhibit?
Thank you. We can take that down, and your objection's noted. It's overruled.
I do check for recalls, yes.
Were there any on this vehicle?
There were not recalls on this vehicle.
Now, you talked about the brake system in terms of the brake pedal within the car, and that was operating correctly. Do you recall that testimony?
Objection leading.
And when you talk about brake pads, how do the brake pads, where are they located, and how do they relate to the pressing down of a brake pedal?
Objection leading.
Are there any other components to the braking system in a car?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
There's a parking brake system.
But other than that, so you've covered every aspect of the braking system in this particular vehicle, is that correct?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
Is there anything that you observed or documented with it during or in your mechanical inspection report that would have contributed to the crashes that this car was involved in?
Objection, that's an answer.
No.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any cross-exams?
During your inspection, did you see any bullet holes?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall back up. Do you recall how many bullet holes you observed?
More than one.
The ones that you observed, do you recall where they were?
One might have exited through either the windshield or rear window, and one was in the side of the vehicle, if I remember correctly.
And did you find any shell casings?
No, I did not.
And you said you did the inspection on December 6th?
That's correct.
Do you know if the vehicle had been... Do you know if anyone attempted to start the vehicle in between that time of the crash and your inspection?
Not to my knowledge, no.
But you don't know for sure?
That's correct.
You made reference to the left rear tire being bigger than the other tires?
Yes.
Can you give a little bit more clarity on how that would affect the vehicle?
One larger tire on the vehicle would obviously make the vehicle lean ever so slightly away from whichever side is larger than the other. In this case, the amount of difference between the two tires, it's about 1.5 inches in difference in radius. So in radius, you get half of that amount in height. So it would be about 3/4 of an inch difference in height. That amount of difference is not noticeable in a vehicle. Each vehicle acts differently with different sized tires on it.
So different vehicles act differently to having a bigger fitting tire.
Yes.
You made reference to a vehicle leaning away from the side that's bigger? Or
correct.
Would that in any way create a slight pull to the vehicle, to either side?
In my experience, that small amount would not, no.
And you made reference to the high beams. I don't remember exactly what you said referring to the high beams. I guess you made reference to them being used at some point?
The high beams were activated when I did my inspection. The selector stick was pressed forward.
Why would a vehicle use high beams?
Usually a driver uses high beams to see better.
So that would primarily refer to if it was nighttime?
Correct.
Would you say, with your expertise, it wouldn't make sense for a vehicle to use high beams in the daytime?
There are limited uses for them in the daytime, yes.
And what are some of the uses from your knowledge?
The high beams shine brighter, so even with sunlight shining on them, other vehicles can see them. It's a thing that we use on the highway as law enforcement sometimes. We'll use the high beams at a crash scene. We'll turn the high beams on so oncoming traffic coming in during the daytime sees that brighter light from the vehicle.
So it would essentially be for identification purposes?
Not so much for identification, no.
Well, what do you mean when you refer to for oncoming traffic to be able to...
More for visibility is what I mean.
Gets them to notice that law enforcement is present.
Correct.
That's what I meant by ID purpose, for them to be able to see.
Then yes.
Were you able to inspect the entire engine?
I was not able to inspect the entire engine.
And what parts of the engine were you not able to inspect?
The only parts that I was unable to inspect would be down in the front by the belt pulleys area. I could see that the radiator was pushed into it, but I couldn't see what components had been damaged by that, as far as like water pump or anything like that. My main under the hood inspection components would be non-engine related, aside from the throttle.
You made reference to the water pump. Did you notice any water leaking?
Yes, there was coolant that had leaked from the vehicle.
From the water pump?
I don't know where it actually had leaked from, but I know that there was a lack of coolant in the vehicle. When I saw it, it was empty.
So you didn't actually observe it leaking?
Correct.
So it'd be fair to say you don't know where the leaking came from?
That's correct.
Were you told that the vehicle was leaking?
No, it just has a low coolant level, meaning it leaked from someplace.
So at that time, it'd be fair to say you weren't sure if it had been filled properly or if it was leaking?
Either is possible.
But it'd be fair to say you didn't know for sure which of the two?
Correct.
You made reference to a loose ball joint. Can you give a little bit more clarity on exactly what is a ball joint? That is clarity. I don't know anything about cars, so. You said there was a loose ball joint?
Yes, the left front was loose.
To what effect could that affect the vehicle?
As those components start to wear down, they start to have a little play, then you can start having issues with improper tire wear until it gets to the point that it actually separates. The ball and socket themselves will separate from each other.
And then what happens at that point?
If the ball and socket joints separate, you would lose steering at that wheel. The other wheel would still be able to steer.
From your inspection, can you tell roughly how long this loose or this ball joint was loose?
I cannot tell exactly how long, no.
So with your expertise, would it be fair to say that needed to be taken care of?
Yes, that needed to be corrected.
And you made reference to the gas. The vehicle having difficulty starting. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And reference to the axles. You made reference to taking them off the vehicle?
The axle I do not take off of the vehicle at all.
What did you do in regards to the axle?
I removed the wheel and tire from the actual axle end.
I think that's what I was referring to. Okay. I'm sorry if I misquoted. I know you made some reference to removing something. I just assume you meant the axle. When you inspect the axle and remove, you said the wheel?
Yes.
What is being expected at that point?
So when I remove the wheel and tire from the vehicle, I actually look at the brake components themselves, being the brake pads, the brake calipers, pistons inside the caliper, brake rotors, and then I get a better view of the tie rod that I was just speaking about because it's actually next to the wheel on the axle end of the vehicle.
You said the tire rod?
The tie rod, ball joint that was loose.
Oh, okay. So what, I think you just were clear about the ball joint and tire rod. Is there a difference between the two?
Yes, the ball joint is the joint itself, and it's on the end of the tie rod.
Did you notice anything wrong with the tire rod? The actual tire rod, not the ball joint?
No, there was nothing wrong with the tie rod.
Just 1 second, I'm just looking over these notes. Page 9 of your report, and you did give some clarity to this. I'm just curious to know, on page 9, well, first of all, you wrote this report yourself, correct?
Yes.
On page 9, the second sentence, I'm assuming you still have the exhibit 83?
Yes, sir.
It says, I noted a worn tie rod end on the left front wheel end. Was that in reference to the ball joint and not the tie rod?
Yes, they're one and the same. The two different ways to refer to the same component.
Okay, that was clarity. It doesn't say ball joint right here. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
And what is the high mount brake lamp?
Third brake light that's like usually in the rear window or at the top of the back of the hatch of the vehicle.
And it was inoperable when you inspected it?
That's correct.
So they didn't work?
Correct.
So it'd be fair to say if someone was viewing the vehicle from behind, they wouldn't be able to see because those were inoperable?
Yes, at the time of inspection, those lights did not work.
And you also stated that it is unknown if they were working prior to the crash or damaged during the crash. That'd be fair to say?
That's correct.
That you would know either way?
No, I would not have a way to tell when that light bulb went out.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
So you testified on cross-examination that the right and high mount brake lamp were inoperable. Do you recall that?
Yes.
How about the left brake lamp? Was that operable or inoperable?
Objection. Leading.
The left stop lamp was working.
Was your testimony on cross-examination that unless the ball and socket is separated, you can still safely operate that vehicle?
Objection. Mischaracterizes what was said.
Based on the form of the question, I'll allow the witness to answer.
Yes.
Does the engine control acceleration?
Objection. Relevancy.
No, it requires driver input.
Does the engine control steering?
Objection. What is the relevancy?
No, it does not.
Does the engine control gear shifting?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
It does not.
You had talked about coolant or some type of water. Do you know what was leaking, if anything?
Objection. Asked and answered during cross.
The coolant system was low at the time of inspection and had been leaking, but from where, I do not know.
You had talked about the presence of the high beams being on during the daylight. Specifically, you had indicated that sometimes the State Patrol uses their high beams during the day. What was that for?
Objection. That was answered.
Overruled.
To increase visibility.
Is that of any assistance if a vehicle is coming up behind people?
Objection. Speculative.
No.
Nothing further.
Just about 3:06 will take about 15 minutes. I'll rise for the jury. Mr. Brooks, I know the last thing you said, I heard you say that's hilarious. What were you referring to?
I was referring to, like, are you serious? Some of the same things that I ask on when it's my time to question the witness can be overruled. But when the same thing is done and I object, it's nothing. It's just thrown. It's just thrown to the side. I just think that's funny.
Well, sir, I don't find it funny, number one. Number two,
you're not in my position either.
The court rules on the objections. At the time that the objections are made, you had questioned during the testimony of this witness Exhibit 83, because I believe what you were saying is the copy of the report you have does not have an exhibit sticker on it.
It don't. You want to see it?
I don't, because at the time the report was provided to you, it would have been provided through the course of discovery. I know from your cross-examination you were referring to the report. At times you referred to it by page number. It was clear from your questioning that you had reviewed it. I would just note two examples. You asked some questions regarding visibility and the impact of the high beams, and then secondly, questioning him about the ball joint and whether it needed attention and what that would mean. And so I just wanted to make...
That didn't come from the report, Your Honor. The only thing that came from the report was from page 9 when I was trying to get clarity about why it said worn tire tie rod.
As far as the other issues I think that you might have when there's redirect, I'm not going to explain what redirect is. I am going to caution you, sir.
Do you understand what I was...
During multiple times during the questioning of that witness, you were mumbling under your breath. You say disparaging remarks toward the court, toward the witness, or toward the process.
So if it was disparaging, what did I say?
Sir, you say things like it's not fair, or you make noises that suggest like you're disgusted with the ruling that is made.
So you're assuming what I mean by that, and when did I say
Mr.
it
Brooks,
wasn't
I'm
fair?
just making a record because
yeah, but
it's important
you're making an
that
incorrect record.
It's important that you demonstrate courtesy and decorum through these proceedings, and that you give respect to the witnesses who are testifying in the process.
Did the witness feel disrespected? Did the witness say anything about feeling disrespected?
Mr. Brooks, I'm not going to engage in this
I don't think
back
you did.
and forth with you because, first of all, it's a mischaracterization of my observations, number one. And
yeah,
number
but your
two,
observations are incorrect.
It's my job to ensure that under 906.11 that there's the effective presentation, and I'll just refer you to that once again. I'll read it into the record.
You don't need to read it.
Under 906.
Just make sure that you make a correct
The judge shall exercise reasonable control over the mode and order of interrogating witnesses and presenting evidence to us to do all of the following. Make the interrogation and presentation effective for the ascertainment of truth, avoid needless consumption of time, protect witnesses from harassment or undue embarrassment.
When the court overruled one of Mr. Brooks' objections, his
I don't
response
consent to being
was,
called that name,
stop
Your Honor.
trying to be slick.
Yeah, I did say that.
So, just for the record, I thought that that was very disrespectful.
Why wasn't that addressed right when it happened?
Honestly, Mr. Brooks, I'm really trying hard
Because
not to highlight
that's the
your
definition of
misconduct
trying to be slick.
during the trial, and trying my best here to
I don't see
frankly
that.
minimize
I don't
pointing
see
those
it.
things out to the jury and instead
I
pointing
don't
them
see
out outside the presence of the jury. You may have noticed I've even started to say I'd remind the jurors that the comments of the parties or the attorneys are not evidence and not simply highlight your conduct.
I haven't noticed anything, and I don't
But all right, we're in
refer
recess.
to what
Thank you.
conduct
It's
you're referring
3:14.
to. If you're gonna be biased, then
Thank you. Please be seated. We'll go back on the record. Do you want to talk scheduling?
Our final witness would be a recall of Detective Casey briefly for some follow-up matters. And then we would be in a position to rest. I don't hold out hope that we'll probably be able to rest yet this evening, but maybe, depending on how late you go and how smooth things move along.
All right, sir, did you have anything?
yes, I do. Detective Casey already testified. What would be the significance of him testifying again?
Well, let's take that up later. I want to deal with the lab analyst. So, other than that issue, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I thought he was released from his subpoena. At least that was my guess.
I honestly don't recall whether that question was asked.
So how late do we plan on going?
I will go as late as 6 o'clock if need be. So I want to keep pushing along.
Yeah, that's definitely pushing it here.
I'm willing to go a little bit later tonight. So it's 3:30 now. We'll see how things go.
I was making that saying that on the record because in my position that is kind of late.
Well, let's start now and we'll get going, and maybe we don't have to go that late. So bring the jury out.
Are we going to address subject matter jurisdiction?
The written decision that I previously entered is what I will stand on. I'm not going to address it any further.
Is that verified proof?
Sir, my written decision is the decision on subject matter
Is it
jurisdiction.
verified proof? Because it hasn't been proven on the record, and that was not verified proof. It has
I
yet to be
am
proven.
denying the request by the defendant to verify subject matter jurisdiction.
It
That's
has to be
denied.
proven for the record.
I disagree with you as a matter of law. The
Show
jury's
me-
coming
show me
out.
Lawful law.
All right for the jury.
Show me by lawful law. Unless you make an tacit agreement that you don't have to prove subject matter jurisdiction on the record by law. It should be
All right,
proven by
welcome back,
Constitution.
ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The state may call its next witness.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm employed as the chief of the Office of Crime Scene Response.
Is there a set procedure you follow when you are asked to respond to a crime scene?
Yes.
What is that, please?
Objection leading.
Was the crime scene response unit asked to respond to an incident in the city of Waukesha, county of Waukesha, state of Wisconsin?
Yes.
What was the nature of the call?
To respond to an address on Maple Street to begin processing a vehicle that was abandoned in the driveway of that residence.
Were you given any limited information as to the significance of the vehicle?
Yes, it was reported to me that the vehicle was more than likely involved in running through the Waukesha Christmas parade.
Were you aware that it was reported pedestrians had been struck during the event?
Yes, that was reported.
Now, when I think of a crime scene, I typically think of a place or a location. Does your unit also cover processing of a vehicle like this?
Yes, and the vehicle itself can be considered a crime scene in and of itself.
In your years with the crime lab, do you have prior experience processing motor vehicles that were suspected to have been involved in fatal collisions with pedestrians?
Objection leading.
Did you personally respond to the address at 338 Maple?
Yes, I was one of two people responding.
Who else responded?
Julie Avila.
And does Julie work with you?
She does.
What's her task or primary responsibility?
Objection leading.
And I'd like to show you a series of photographs. So first on the screen is Exhibit 67, which I believe was previously admitted? Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Objection.
Overruled.
This is a overview showing the front end damage of the red Ford Escape that's parked in the driveway of 338 Maple.
Next, Exhibit 93.
This is a close-up showing the damage of the front end of the vehicle.
Prior to the photographing of the vehicle, has it been moved or altered by you in any way, sir?
No.
Objection leading.
Put up for the witness number 68, which has been previously admitted.
Go ahead.
Objection.
Overruled.
This is the photographs taken at an angle, the front passenger side of the vehicle.
Number 102.
This is
Objection.
Overruled.
This is a mid-range photograph of the driver front quarter panel.
And number 103.
This is a overall photograph of the back end of the red Ford Escape.
Do you believe these 5 photographs are true and accurate depictions of the way the vehicle looked on the driveway at 338 Maple that evening, sir?
Objection leading.
I'm sorry, I was trying to get a hold of my witness list. Could you re-ask the question?
Do these 5 photographs truly and accurately depict the way the vehicle looked at 338 Maple Street on the evening of November 21, 21?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Move to admit 93, 102, 103, and permission to publish all 5.
Objection. Relevancy.
Noted. Overruled.
67, you testified was an overview photograph.
Yeah, it's an overall photograph of the...
Overruled.
This is a overall photograph showing the location of the vehicle.
Next, 93, please describe.
A close-up.
Overruled.
A close-up of the damage that has been sustained on the front hood area, bumper area of the red Ford Escape.
Next is 68.
Objection.
Overruled.
Mid-range photograph showing the damage, front-end damage.
From the bottom of that photograph, there appears to be some liquid substance on the ground. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, I
Objection
do.
leading.
Do you remember seeing that substance that night?
Yes.
Were you able to tell what it was?
Objection speculative.
Not specifically what type of fluid it is, but some kind of engine compartment fluid.
Number 102, please.
A mid-range of the driver front quarter panel, also showing what I describe as a white headband on the broken driver door mirror.
Is that illuminated in some fashion?
Objection
Yes.
leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
How was it illuminated?
Objection leading.
And then last would be 103.
Objection.
Please describe. Oh, I'm sorry, he objected.
Overruled.
An overall from the further into the driveway showing the rear end of the red Ford Escape.
Now, after these photographs were collected on Maple Street, did there come a time where you planned to move the vehicle?
Yes. My thought and my processing strategy this particular night was to collect anything that would be fragile in nature off of the vehicle and then get it transported to a more environmentally friendly, secured facility to continue processing in the subsequent days.
Was that for your comfort or for some scientific reason?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
It was very cold that night, so it was difficult to process. It was very windy, but it was for a purely scientific standpoint. Doing the necessary steps of collecting whatever I needed and I deemed fragile.
So what items, if you recall, did you remove that you had deemed fragile?
Objection leading.
What about the front bumper? We saw that laying on the driveway. Was that secured in some fashion?
Objection leading.
The bumper would have had to be lifted up with bungee cords and resecured.
Ask Madam Clerk if you could turn off the display, please, and I'm going to present to the witness only another series of photographs, starting with 105.
Do you know how many?
8.
Sequential?
Yes, 105 through 112.
Thank you.
Objection relevancy.
Well, I haven't seen them yet, so I'll have to wait. But given what I see on the screen, the objection is overruled.
For the sake of time, I'm just going to ask the witness to look through these photos just as if he had them in front of him, and then I'll ask some foundational questions. So 105 is on the screen. Do you see it, sir?
Yes.
Do you need more time to review that photo?
No.
106, please.
Yes.
Do you need more time to review that photo?
Objection
No.
leading.
Overruled.
Move for admission of 105 through 112 and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection.
Noted. Permission to publish granted as to all.
So in this photograph, sir, is the, what's the condition of the front bumper, please?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
The front bumper is secured with those bungee cords that we previously talked about.
Next, 106, please. Please describe.
Overall photograph, the front driver's quarter panel, including showing the hood damage.
Was there an effort by you to try and match the pieces of the bumper to the frame of the body, or is that just the way it came together?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
What is the position of the driver's side window in this photograph, sir?
The window is down.
Is that the way you found it?
Yes.
Objection.
Overruled.
107, please. Please describe.
An overall photograph from the point view of the front passenger side of the vehicle.
Next, 108.
Objection.
Overruled.
Please describe.
An overview of the front of the vehicle, including the front passenger quarter panel.
109. Please describe.
An overall photograph of the passenger side of the vehicle. Including in this photograph is the front quarter panel, the front passenger door, and the rear passenger door.
Along the front passenger door and the rear passenger door, do you see anything remarkable?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Spanning the length of both doors is quite a significant scratch.
Have you seen scratches like that before in processing motor vehicles, sir?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
I have.
What is that consistent with, please?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Coming into contact with another item.
Number 110, please describe.
Overall photograph showing the rear of the passenger side of the vehicle.
111,
Objection.
Overruled.
please describe.
An overall photograph from the vantage point of the rear passenger side of the vehicle.
And then 112.
Objection.
Overruled.
An overall of the vehicle from vantage point rear driver side of the vehicle.
Looks like there's substance on the exterior of the vehicle on the driver's side. Do you see what I'm referring to, sir?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Yes, I do.
Do you know what that item or substance was?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
I did do a presumptive test to see if it's possibly blood. All tests that I did of that liquid that's on the driver's side came back negative for the
Okay.
possible presence of blood.
And was it sprayed along the most of the driver's side of the vehicle?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
Yes.
Do you remember locating an object on the front passenger seat of the vehicle?
Yes.
I'm going to ask that we display to the witness only Exhibit 117. Move to admit 117. Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. Permission to publish granted.
Could you please circle the hat that you just described for the jury? Like to show another photograph to the witness, Exhibit 118, please.
Objection.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Do you recognize the object in Exhibit 118?
I do.
Do you believe this photo is a true and accurate representation of the object as you found it on the vehicle?
I do.
Objection, speculative.
Please describe.
The clothing items that were pinned to the windshield by the crumpled hood.
Did you eventually remove these items?
Yes. It was a detachable hood from a jacket as well as a winter hat.
And can you just point out on the touchscreen which is which?
Objection, leading.
Did you find any U.S. mail or paperwork inside the vehicle?
Objection, relevancy.
Yes, I did.
Were there any names associated with the U.S. mail or paperwork inside the vehicle?
Objection, relevancy.
Yes.
What was that name?
Darrell E. Brooks, Jr.
Was there an address, if you can recall?
Objection, relevancy.
On the table next to you, sir, is your report that I've marked as exhibit number 90. Do you see that?
Yes.
Wait. Placed on the table.
Go ahead, Attorney Opper.
Well, objection. How did it get on the table?
Your objections noted. It's overruled. Record will reflect that there's a copy of a crime lab report. It has an exhibit sticker, number 90, with the case number of this case. Handing it back to the witness. Go ahead. You may question.
How did it get on the table? Who placed it on the table?
Attorney Opper indicated she placed it there.
When did that happen?
Attorney Opper, go ahead. Continue.
Did you author this report, sir?
Yes, I did.
If you review the report, would you be able to see the address for Darrell Brooks that was noted in the paperwork from the inside of the SUV?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Please do.
Overruled.
Yes, I would.
Please do that, sir.
Objection.
Overruled.
Grounds for the overrule.
The witness may answer.
Grounds for the overrule.
Go ahead, sir.
The address for the pieces of mail that I recovered was 4014 North 19th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Objection. That should be struck. When he asked the question, he said he didn't recall. So how can you force somebody to recall?
The witness's recollection was refreshed through the use of his report. The answer will stand. Go ahead. Next question, please.
Yes, and actually, if I could back up 1 minute and ask Ms. Gussie to put back up 117. Got to ask a question about 117.
Go ahead.
And if we could display it, please, Madam Clerk.
Nobody got to answer no questions.
Mr. Brooks, please refrain from interrupting. You'll have an opportunity to ask your
I have an
questions
objection
on
of
cross.
how stuff got to the table without my knowledge. That should be known. That should at least be noted for the record.
It was
I wouldn't
noted
be able to do that.
Your objection's noted. It's overruled. Go ahead, Attorney Opper.
So that needs to stop happening.
In
It needs
addition
be
to the
fixed.
hat.
All right, I'm going to excuse the jury.
All right, for the jury.
Can't keep doing stuff without. It should be a fair trial. That's my right. I shouldn't be able to do things without my knowledge and then pass it off to the jury like that's fair. They deserve to know that too.
Mr. Brooks, you are well aware that the reason
consent to being called
documents
that
are
name.
being put on the
I don't consent to
witness
being
stand
called that name.
are because this court indicated it would limit the movement of the parties due to your custodial status to keep things fair.
And I
You are
merely asked, how did
attempting-
it get there?
Sir, do not
I'm not
interrupt
enti-
me or you will
I'm not
forfeit your
entitled
right
to
to be
know how I got
present
there?
in this courtroom.
So
Do
you
not
holding me in
interrupt
contempt?
me.
Are you holding me in contempt?
I'm going to make a record
are you holding me in contempt?
I'm not answering your questions.
So then you're not holding me in contempt.
Do not interrupt me again or you will go to the other courtroom.
Under what lawful law?
All right, he's interrupted me once again. We're going to clear the courtroom. He's being disrespectful. I'll make a record once he moves. Unless you can promise me right now that you let me make my record without you interrupting me, sir.
You gonna make your record? You can make your record.
Then please don't interrupt me.
Don't hold me in contempt.
I've never said any such thing.
Removing me from the courtroom, Your Honor, is essentially holding me in contempt.
No, you're forfeiting your right to be present under Illinois versus Allen.
I didn't forfeit anything.
I'm going to start talking, and if he interrupts, then I will close this courtroom, and he will be taken to the next courtroom. You are well aware the court made some pretrial rulings related to whether the parties could approach the witness stand. Frankly, from my perspective, sir, your attempts and your comments are to try to dig in at this jury and to somehow create doubt about the presentation of this case or the fairness of these proceedings. Any further mumbling under your breath or not recognizing when I uphold or sustain an objection that I will take as a disrupting interruption meant to disrupt the proceedings. I've been abundantly patient with you, so I'm warning you, do not interrupt again. If this jury comes back or when they come back and you do that, then you will be removed and you will forfeit your right to be present for the examination of this witness. Let's bring the jury back in.
Well, you might as well remove me then, because what you're doing is not fair. I can't even rebut what you're saying. I didn't interrupt you. I let you make your incorrect record.
Mr. Brooks, I'm bringing the jury out and we're continuing. We're going to get through these witnesses.
Okay? And I'm not stopping you from doing that.
Through your behavior, you're not going to delay these proceedings today.
I'm not trying to delay the proceedings, so I wish you would stop being incorrect on the record and saying what I'm trying to do if you don't know that. You don't know what I'm trying to do.
I'm bringing the jury out. I'm not going to argue with you.
Then don't. Because I'm not arguing with you either. I'm stating facts.
You're raising your voice. It's
because I'm tired of you always making a record.
At me.
You're making a record of me trying to look bad. I know what you're trying to do. It's not going to work.
I'm making a record of what's accurately.
You're making a record of incorrect statements. That's what you're doing. You're not making a record of not being able.
I'm advising you to be quiet because the jury's coming back out.
You're advising me to be quiet? Is you telling me to be quiet?
I'm advising you to be respectful when the jury comes out.
Are you telling me to be quiet or are you asking me?
I'm asking you and advising you.
Thank you for correcting that, because don't nobody tell me what to do. I don't tell nobody else what to do.
I'd appreciate
we're all adults in here. I've never told you to do anything at all.
Sir, I'd appreciate if your tone of voice would change.
I would appreciate if you would ask me. I'm a grown man with grown kids. Ain't nobody gonna talk to me like that. Nobody. I don't have a problem with doing what you ask me to do, not tell me. Just like when I asked you about subject matter jurisdiction that you have yet to prove on the record. But somehow I'm being intentionally disruptive. Come on, man. Stop. Just stop it.
Jury's coming out.
All rise for the jury.
Not going to work. I'm supposed to be scared of getting removed or something.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Statement continue its examination of this witness. I believe we're on Exhibit 117.
Were there other items on the front passenger seat besides the blue winter hat?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I do recall a cell phone being present, an iPhone.
I also see some items that look like maybe headphones or a charging cable, something like that. Do you see that,
Objection
sir?
leading.
Overruled.
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
I do see that.
Do you remember something like that on the front passenger seat?
Yes.
And how about on the floorboard of the front passenger seat? Is there an item there, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Now, if we could please go to Exhibit 116. Do you believe this to be a true and accurate depiction of the interior of the SUV?
Yes.
Move to admit 116, permission to publish.
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
This is an overview of the rear passenger seat.
Was the condition of the back seat like this when you found the vehicle, sir?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Now for the witness only, 113, 114, and 115. Please describe 113.
That is an apparent fired bullet defect that's in the windshield.
Were you able to tell the path of travel for the bullet?
Objection
Yes.
speculative.
Number 114.
That's an apparent fired bullet defect. I call this a striking defect. That's on the roof rail of the passenger side of it.
Number 115.
This is an apparent fired bullet defect. I call this a perforating defect because it actually went through the exterior door skin and went all the way through into the inside of the vehicle.
Was there any evidence that that bullet traveled any further than the cargo area of the SUV?
Objection, speculative.
No, the bullet stayed in that rear cargo area.
Aside from examining the interior and the exterior of the vehicle, did you attempt to look underneath the vehicle?
Yes.
What kinds of things are you looking for on the undercarriage?
I was looking for any hairs, fibers, any potential biological fluids such as blood.
Did you find any such objects?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
Did you collect those items?
Yes, I did.
You had described for us earlier swabbing of the steering wheel on the interior of the vehicle. Do you recall that?
Objection, leading.
How do you go about swabbing a steering wheel, sir?
Objection, what's the relevancy?
Overruled.
And how about the hat? States Exhibit 87. Did that get transferred to another unit for further analysis, to your knowledge?
Yes, so any clothing item that's
Hold on, there was an objection. Grounds?
Relevancy.
Overruled.
Your report Exhibit 90, did you believe that to be a true and accurate narration or summary, I should say, of your work in this case, sir?
Yes, I do.
Move to admit number 90, Your Honor.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 90 is received.
I don't have any other questions then, Your Honor.
Cross-exam, please.
You said you do DNA analysis, correct?
No, I did DNA analysis for nearly 10 years. I don't actually do DNA analysis anymore.
So at the time of the incident, were you doing DNA analysis?
No.
So who did the DNA analysis on all the items that were found during your investigation?
DNA analyst Trevor Nailed.
Did you see the results of those DNA tests?
We did have conversations.
Did you see them?
No.
So it'd be fair to say you don't know what those results were.
I didn't verify it. Like I said, we just had conversations.
So do you know the results of the DNA analysis?
In particular, is there a particular item?
For any of the items?
I don't recall the exact results, no.
And you made reference to the gunshot that you stated stayed in the rear cargo. Where in the rear cargo did you find that shell casing?
Objection, that's a misstatement. It wasn't a shell casing, Your Honor.
Shell casing, fragment, same thing.
Hold on, there's been an objection. I'll sustain the objection. It mischaracterizes the testimony and ask that you rephrase it.
Did you find a shell casing, a bullet fragment?
I found a fired bullet fragment.
Where did you find the fired bullet fragment?
It was really close proximity to where the rear latch comes down and hooks in to stay closed.
And you said a latch that comes down?
Yeah, so how doors latch, like car doors latch, you know where the latch is? So where the rear cargo door came down and latched, it was in really close proximity on the horizontal surface of that rear cargo area.
Did you observe if the bullet fragment had struck anything?
It struck some items in that rear cargo area.
Do you recall what it struck?
I don't.
You made reference to a headband being on the rear view driver's side mirror, correct?
Correct, it was on the driver's door mirror.
And from your expertise, how would you, in your opinion, guess that it got there?
By coming into contact with something or someone that was wearing it.
And do you know that for sure?
No, but based off of my experience of a lot of years of examination of physical items of evidence.
But it'd be fair to say that you don't know exactly.
No, I wasn't at the parade. No.
And you stated that you were present for the towing of the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall at any time anyone's attempting to start the vehicle?
No.
And you stated that the bumper was, I guess, moved at some point so it wouldn't drag under the vehicle. I'm guessing that's what you said. If I'm wrong, you can...
No, that's correct. Yeah, we used bungee cords to secure it off the ground so that when we're moving it, that it wouldn't be constantly going underneath the vehicle.
When towing the vehicle, what was it placed on?
The vehicle was put onto a flatbed truck and then driven a few houses down where then it was transferred to an enclosed trailer.
So with the bumper, being that it was first placed on a flatbed truck, as you say, at that time what the bumper had, what problem would the bumper had caused if it wasn't going to be physically dragged or anything at that point?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
What kind of problem would the bumper pose if the vehicle was on a flatbed truck?
The whole point
essentially what I'm saying is to give you more clarity. How could the bumper be dragged at that point?
It was being removed from the surface of the driveway onto the flatbed. So if the bumper weren't secured in an upright position, it would be pulled, and the bumper, as the vehicle is was going this way, the bumper would be pulled underneath the vehicle.
So once it was secured on the flatbed truck, would the bumper still pose any problem?
The vehicle on the flatbed, the bumper was in a secured position.
If it wasn't bungee corded, would it have posed a problem?
Yes.
How so if it wasn't moving?
The whole purpose was to secure the bumper in place to preserve any physical evidence that might have been on the bumper.
And do you recall who did the actual towing?
The company is Complete Towing and Recovery.
And you stated to wanting to get the vehicle to a environmentally friendly, secure location?
Yeah, a better term would be environmentally controlled.
What do you mean by environmentally controlled?
Proper lighting outside of the elements, outside of view of the public, so an enclosed building.
Why the reference to outside of the public?
It's easier to do examinations in a controlled environment.
Would it be fair to say at that time, before it was towed, the vehicle had been secured, checked? That was done out in public, so what would be the difference at that point?
I'm going to go back to my original statement of what my primary duty is. My primary duty is to preserve the integrity of the evidence. So that night, I was concerned with doing the necessary steps that I deemed relevant to collect, and then get that vehicle to a more suitable environment, just based off of how much more work and analysis and processing that vehicle would entail.
Fundamentally, I follow what you're saying fundamentally. The question, though, is by the time you arrived to the scene where the vehicle was located, were you aware that the vehicle had essentially been already investigated?
No.
So you had no knowledge that the vehicle had been secured, had been pretty much investigated by that point?
Well, I was aware that the vehicle was in a secured state. I don't know what happened prior to that. It was very little information that I received on the initial phone call because of the hectic nature of everything, and I knew that the vehicle was being secured by law enforcement.
So law enforcement were present when you arrived to the scene?
Yes.
And at that time you had did you learn any knowledge from the law enforcement other than what you were told during the phone call?
No.
Do you recall who you were called by?
I was called by Dave Clabundi of the Division of Criminal Investigations.
Do you recall what time you arrived at the scene?
I arrived at approximately 8:15 p.m.
Do you recall what time the vehicle was found?
I don't recall.
Do you recall anyone telling you or mentioning what time the vehicle had been found?
I don't recall.
So it'd be fair to say before you arrived on the scene, you have no knowledge of what's been happening around the vehicle?
That's correct.
You said you made reference to a hat being found in the background. Do you remember saying that? Or in the backyard, rather. I'm sorry. Not the background. The backyard, I meant to say.
Yes.
And at the time that you observed this hat in the backyard, from your expert opinion, do you recall it having any relevance to the vehicle?
No, it was an item of evidence or a potential item of evidence that just seemed out of place.
But you weren't sure at the time if it had any involvement with the actual vehicle?
No.
Was there anything significant that stood out about the hat?
Just the location.
Did you find any blood on the hat? Or is it just pretty much just a hat in the backyard?
I didn't do a thorough examination of the hat.
So as far as you were concerned, it was basically just taking in the evidence as a precautionary thing? Or?
Yeah, it was an item that just seemed out of place.
Did you at any time obtain knowledge about the relevancy of that?
No.
All the photographs that you were shown, had you seen those photographs before today?
Yes.
Do you recall if they were taken the same night of your investigation or multiple nights or days, rather?
There were multiple days.
And do you recall why those photos had to be taken over a multiple day span?
Yes, the vehicle needed a comprehensive evaluation or processing examination of pretty much every single side and surface of that vehicle.
And to do that, photograph-wise, would have took days?
Yes.
So when did you start actually doing an investigation of the items inside of the vehicle?
November 22nd.
So the next day?
Correct.
And so did you yourself do analysis of the outside of the vehicle?
Yes.
Same day, 22nd of November?
Yes.
So you kind of started the outside and the inside pretty much roughly at the same time?
Yes.
Do you recall how long your complete investigation took?
Mine along with my colleagues?
Yours.
Mine. The examination itself of just me examining the vehicle?
Just you.
Probably over 40 hours. And that does not include the report that I'm writing. It doesn't include the process of going through the report, everything. But my examination, at least 40.
And so I'm assuming you did the report after you completed the initial investigation part?
Yes, the report's a summary of my processing.
And define summary. What do you mean by summary?
It pulls everything together. It details my examinations and any findings I have from those examinations.
I always view summary as not every detail, but pretty much like it's much as would be relevant, but not every single detail. Would that be fair to say?
This report is comprehensive in the terms of it lists every single item that was collected.
So why would you refer to it as a summary?
It's a summary of the examination and processing. That's the best way to describe it. It's not a dictation, in other words.
What do you mean by dictation?
There are other reports that other agencies may do that are dictated, right? I did this, then I did this, then I did this. This is a summary. This isn't a dictated report.
So what exactly did you summarize in your report?
My examination and processing strategies that I used, and the items of evidence collected, and any relevant findings associated with those examinations.
Did you do any examination of the cell phones?
No, I collected those and transferred those to a detective with the Waukesha Police Department.
Do you recall who that detective was?
David, his last name is spelled, I believe, Foyen, Foyen.
So at the time that you turned the phones over, did you do any more work in regards to the phones?
No.
Do you recall doing any investigation on the airbag control module?
No, I don't do that.
Do you recall obtaining a search warrant to conduct an inspection on the ACM?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
An inspection of what?
The ACM, I guess that would be the air control module. I'm guessing that's what that's
Thank you.
referencing.
No, since I don't do that type of analysis or examination, I didn't obtain any search warrant with that.
Any reason why I would say that in the paperwork?
Objection vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question, as to what paperwork you're referring to.
Guessing, I don't know what it will be called, but it says conclusion inspection summary. And the conclusion inspection or conclusion/inspection summary. Do you recall?
Is it from this witness?
Huh?
Is it from this witness?
Yeah.
I don't think that is from this witness, Your Honor. I don't see anything like that in this Exhibit 90. Are you perhaps still looking at Inspector Schultz's report from the State Patrol, the last witness?
What page number do you have? And I'll take a look at it and I'll compare it.
This says page 5.
Yeah, he's looking at the last exhibit from Inspector Schultz, 83.
Well, it says Chief Christopher Johnson.
Oh, it does say that in 83. It says, if I can read for completeness, or you can, it says, upon arrival, I met with Crime Scene Chief Christopher Johnson from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab.
No. That's not what I'm reading from.
Okay. Chief Johnson had obtained a search warrant to conduct the mechanical inspection and to image the data retained within the escape's airbag control module ACM.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that was written by Inspector Schultz, who just testified, not this witness, to clarify the record.
Thank you.
I apologize for that. It's all in the same paperwork with Chief Johnson, so maybe that's where the confusion comes in.
The record would reflect this witness. His last name is Johnson, so I think that's
Yeah,
understandable.
I didn't know. I was just reading what I have here.
Fair enough. Keep going.
Do you recall at any time obtaining any type of search warrants pertaining to the vehicle in this incident?
Yes, I have obtained a copy of the search warrant.
And do you remember what that search warrant was for? What was the intended search?
To search the vehicle and process it for any biological fluids, hairs, fibers, any electronic equipment, any personally identifying information.
And the ACM would fall under the lines of the mechanical side of?
Yes.
At any time during your inspection, did you observe anyone try to start the vehicle?
When I was with Investigator Schultz, when he came to my laboratory, he attempted to start it.
And after you already stated that your initial part of your investigation before the report totaled 40 hours. And at that time, after you had completed your report, did you do any more investigating in regards to the vehicle?
After my report was complete?
Yeah, after you had done the 40 hours that you stated with, and then the actual report.
No. Once my report's done, I didn't do any further examination of the vehicle.
And after that was completed, had you received any follow-up from law enforcement after you had completed everything?
No.
Had you yourself followed up with law enforcement about the investigation after you completed your initial part?
No.
You yourself didn't file any claims in this matter, did you?
No.
Do you know of anyone who filed any claims in this matter?
I don't.
And do you recall who you were subpoenaed by to testify?
I was subpoenaed by District Attorney Sue Opper.
Do you recall when that was?
I don't exactly recall when.
And did you follow up on that subpoena?
No.
After you had received it? Have you at any time seen or read any complaints in regards to this incident?
No.
Do you know who the plaintiff is in this matter?
The state of Wisconsin?
Would you label that as a person, an actual human? Grounds.
Sustained, not relevant.
You ever actually seen the plaintiff in this matter? Grounds.
Sustained.
If you saw the plaintiff, would you be able to identify the plaintiff?
Objection,
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Sustained. Move on to a different line of questioning.
Just trying to establish who the plaintiff is, Your Honor. Do you see the plaintiff present in court today?
Objection,
Grounds.
irrelevant.
Sustained.
Would you consider yourself to be an injured party in this matter?
No.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Just very brief. Mr. Johnson, you said when you arrived on Maple Street there were police officers present,
That's correct.
and you said the vehicle was secure at that point.
Correct.
Objection.
What do you mean?
Leading.
Would it have been possible for a member of the public or any curious person to just walk up and touch the vehicle or do anything to the vehicle?
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled.
They would have been stopped by law enforcement.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down.
The exhibits that Mr. Johnson has, Your Honor, what would you like done with those?
I'll take them.
All right.
I have 90 and 87.
Yes.
What was 87?
87 is a hat.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I did move that, but I would move that into evidence, so we will need that item for the next witness. Please.
Okay. I'll put that back.
Thank you.
Objection to that.
Noted.
Before you showed me that, I didn't even see what that was. If you would have
I'll
never
show it to
told,
you again.
I know, but if you never would have told me, I never would have even know what that was, because I didn't see it until you just moved it.
I believe there's an objection. It's
Yes,
noted.
there is an objection.
Overruled based upon the testimony of the prior witness.
Your Honor, the state next calls Trevor Nayled. Sir, where do you work?
I am employed by the Wisconsin Department of Justice at the State Crime Laboratory in Madison.
And about how many DNA samples have you processed?
Over
Objection.
2,000.
Overruled.
Have you previously testified in court before?
Objection. Relevancy.
And where's DNA found in the human body?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
DNA is found in the nucleus of a cell.
And is that important in your analysis?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
Yes, it is.
Why?
Objection. Leading.
Are you familiar with something known as STR analysis?
Objection. Leading.
I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 91. Do you have that item in front of you, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is 91, please?
91 is my confidential report of laboratory findings dated April 29th, 2022.
Do you know if it relates to events occurring in the city of Waukesha on November 21 of 21?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
Yes, it does.
Were you given some items to process for DNA analysis?
I was, yes.
Were you given DNA standards to compare any profiles that you may develop from the evidence to known individuals in the case?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember who you got standards from?
I do.
Are you able to name them? Or if you need to refer to your report, you may, but just let us know.
Okay. Can I read off the report?
You may read off your report. What page are you reading from, sir?
I will be reading page 2.
Okay, go ahead.
Objection.
Overruled. The witness may do so.
I received buccal swabs, so cheek swabs from Erica Patterson as well as Darrell Brooks. I received dried blood standards from Wilhelm Hospital, Tamara Durand, Jane Kulik, Leanna Owen, Virginia Sorensen, and Jackson Sparks.
Is there a difference between those two, the method in which they were submitted, the buccal swab versus the dried blood standard?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. Foundational. The witness may answer.
Now, you processed many items related to this case. Is that correct, sir?
Objection. Leading.
The swabs were obtained by another member of the crime lab. Is that right?
Objection. Speculative.
Were you able to develop any DNA profiles from the swabs of the steering wheel in this case?
Yes, I was.
What were your findings?
It was a 2-person mixture with at least one male.
Can you explain for the jury what that means?
We can look at a profile, and based on how many peaks there are at different locations, each person will have a maximum of 2. So if you have 3 peaks at a location, you know that you have more than one person there. And so in this case, we were able to say that it was a 2-person mixture.
Were you able to identify who those 2 people would be?
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled.
Yes.
How did you do that, sir?
I ran it through this program called StarMix.
Is that a computer program?
Yes, it is.
What is that, please?
Objection. Leading.
How does it work?
Objection. Leading.
The software that you use, the StarMix or STR Mix, is that used in other labs around the country, sir?
Objection. Speculative. I don't know what's used around the country.
Overruled. the witness may answer.
Yes, it is.
Is it a reliable method of performing DNA analysis, in your opinion, sir?
Yes, it is.
Has it been accepted in courts and other cases?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
Yes, sir.
More than once?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Do you know about how many times Star Mix has been used in Wisconsin courts?
Objection, speculative.
Overruled.
Did you use Star Mix to analyze the DNA profile, this two-person mixture from the steering wheel of the Ford Escape?
Objection, leading.
What conclusion did you draw?
Based on it being a two-person mixture, Erica Patterson and Darrell Brooks are both very strong support for inclusion, plus an unknown, over 2 unknowns.
So the odds of it being Mr. Brooks' DNA versus some other random person in the world are very, very rare, correct?
Objection, leading, and I don't consent to being called that name.
I'd like to move on then to the gear shift. Did you receive swabs from the gear shift of the red SUV?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to develop a DNA profile from the swab from the gear shift?
Yes, I was.
What did you find?
That was a 3-person mixture, also with at least
I'm sorry, you trailed off at the end. A 3-person mixture, what?
with at least 1 male contributor.
Were you able to do any further analysis on that DNA profile?
I ran that through StarMix.
And what conclusion did you reach?
Objection, leading.
The same as the steering wheel. Erica Patterson and Darrell Brooks are both very strong support for inclusion.
Meaning that their DNA is on that gear shift.
Objection, leading.
It's at least 1 quadrillion times more likely to observe the DNA profile if it's a mixture from H1, meaning the person of interest, and 2 unknowns versus 3 unknowns.
Person of interest being Darrell Brooks.
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name. It is leading the witness.
Sir, do you recognize item number 84, or exhibit number 84, I should say?
I do.
Is that an item that you processed?
Yes, it is.
The swab of the collar. Did you use StarMix software to rule in or out the possibility of Mr. Brooks being included in that profile?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name. It is leading the witness.
Noted. Overruled.
Yes, I did.
How about the cuffs on the sweatshirt? What was your finding and ultimate conclusion as to Mr. Brooks' likelihood DNA in that mix?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name. Leading the witness.
And the last item you said was a stain on the right cuff of the sweatshirt?
Correct.
Did you reach any ultimate conclusion as it relates to that item?
Both Erica Patterson and Darrell Brooks are very strong support for inclusion.
You said that substance was a presumptive positive for blood?
Correct.
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
All right, thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions.
Go ahead when you're ready.
These DNA analysis with StarMix, I'm a little curious to get clarification on what does it mean when you say mixture? What exactly does that mean?
A mixture just means that it is more than 1 person present in the profile.
So by it being more than 1 person present in the profile, would it be fair to say that that would constitute it being more than 1 person?
Yes.
The gear shift had a 3-person mixture, so would that apply to the gear shift the same, that it would likelihood there's 3 different people's DNA on the gear shift?
That's correct.
And for the steering wheel, a 2-person mixture, so that would be 2 people for DNA for the steering wheel?
Correct.
Do you recall when you did this DNA analyzation rather? I'm sorry.
On any specific item or all of them?
Do you recall when you did all the items, I guess?
So most of the items were collected in November. They were not transferred to the medicine lab until the end of January. So I started, I believe January 31st was the first day that I started analysis. And then my report was written April 29th.
So you started the analysis at the end of January?
Correct.
And you did your report in April? Why so long?
I generated 583 pages and my report's 15 pages long, so that takes a little bit of time.
So you broke down the 583 pages into 15.
Correct.
To the best of your knowledge, do you know why it took from November to January for you to actually get the items that you were going to analyze for DNA?
Other than me picking up the case then, not really, no. I don't know.
Do you know where the items were kept prior to you receiving them?
Yes.
Can you state for the jury and for the record?
Our evidence technicians, when they came to the Madison lab, put them into storage where all evidence is stored.
Were the items sealed like they are now?
Yes.
And so I'm assuming you had to unseal them, get them out of the sealing packages to do the analyzation. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct, yes.
And did you yourself alone do the analyzation, or did you have other people that you worked with?
I did all of the DNA myself.
Did you repackage the items after you were done yourself?
Yes, I did.
And did you return them back to where you had received them from, or did you keep them at your, I think you said the Madison lab?
I'm based out of the Madison lab, yes. Typically, when we're done with evidence, we will return them to our evidence technicians, who will then put them back into storage. When the case is done, the evidence is then returned to the submitting agency.
So the items are still at your lab, is from your knowledge?
Now?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I asked that, let me give you some clarity. I asked that because you said at the completion of the case, they would be returned to the agency that you received them from. So I was kind of trying to get clarity on that. So do you know if they were returned to the agency you received them from already?
I believe they were.
So it'd be fair to say in this situation, the items weren't continued to be stored at the Madison lab.
That's correct.
A lot of these DNA analysis, I noticed that specifically DNA was analyzed for 8 people. Would that be fair to say?
Sounds right, yes.
And specifically referring to the analysis that had 3-person mixtures and things of that nature, what happens to the 3rd-person mixture that is excluded? Is it any way?
The question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't understand the question.
I guess I'm referring to when someone is excluded, which I interpret as ruled out, there's still that mystery 3rd mixture. Can that 3rd mixture be identified in some way, or how does that work?
Sorry. Yes, we would need a standard submitted from another person who they believe could possibly be the source of that DNA.
So would it be fair to say for the analysis that you did that had 3-person mixtures, there's still a DNA that you found that's unknown?
That's correct.
And can you explain what is CODIS? Is that pronounced right? CODIS or Kodak?
Yes, it is.
Can you explain what CODIS?
It is a database of known individuals.
And when you find that a DNA, I'm guessing, I don't know if the right word to use would be sample, or I don't know if that's correct. When you come to the conclusion that a DNA sample is not eligible for entry into CODIS, what exactly does that mean?
There are certain rules that we must abide by for putting profiles into CODIS. Depending on where it's collected from, pretty much determines the eligibility on whether or not we can put it in.
One of your analysis had a 4-person mixture. Were you able to determine out of the 8 DNAs that you ran if any of those DNAs were found on that specific item?
Your Honor, I object that it's vague. I'm not sure which item he's referring to.
I'm referring to, it says, brim of maroon winter style hat.
What page are you on, please, sir?
6.
Right, so you want directing the witness to page 6?
That's where I'm reading from, yeah. I said this one in particular, the one I'm referring to, has a 4-person mixture. Did your analysis identify any one of those 4 people out of the 8 DNA samples that you were analyzing?
No, it did not.
Would it be fair to say for pretty much all the items that you did analysis on, there were at minimum 2 or 3-person mixtures?
No.
And why would you say that?
Typically in our reports, we lump the star mix samples together. If you look before that, it will have items that were single source.
That's why I said the majority, or if not all. I didn't say every single one.
I wouldn't say the majority, no.
Certainly looks that way. Is it autosomal? How do you say that word?
Autosomal.
Autosomal STR-DNA results and conclusions. That starts on page 5. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct, yes.
And ends on page 13. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct, yes.
Would it be fair to say that page 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6, out of all those pages, only 3 have single source and all the rest of them have at least 2 or 3 mixtures? Would that be fair to say?
No.
And can you point out where the inaccuracy may be?
Sure.
In case I'm not being accurate?
Yeah, on page 6, the first profile that you're looking at, cuttings of the apparent hair from the gas tank strap. That's a single source profile.
That's 1.
The next line, the cutting of the unlit end of the blunt is 1.
2.
Cuttings of the apparent roots from the hairs, which is CC4, CC5, and CC8. So that's 3 items right there.
So you're looking at the actual heading?
Correct.
And is that it from?
On that page, yes.
Any other pages?
Which direction, Mr. Brooks? Forward or backward?
I don't consent to being called that name. We're going from page 6.
Are you asking single source profiles?
Page 7. From page 7, do you see any single source
or yes, I guess it would be called single source?
No, from page 6 to 13, as you previously stated, those are my star mix ones. So each one of those is going to be a mixture profile.
So the majority of them have mixture of persons.
From those pages, yes, there are many single source profiles before the star mix.
Do you recall who you turned your report over to once you finished your report?
For technical review?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
For technical review?
I'm referring to once you had finished your written report. Do you recall who you turned that over to?
Yes.
Can you state it for the jury and for the record?
Kelly Gajewski was my tech reviewer.
And do you know what happened to the written report from that point?
After she reviews it, sent it back for edits, and then I fixed those. It was approved by her. Then it goes to a supervisor for an administrative review.
Fix the edits? What do you mean by fix the edits?
If there's any typos or anything like that, it'll come back. Or if I forgot to initial a page or something like that.
Working with law enforcement, which you've stated you've done numerous times, in regards to written reports, to your knowledge, are you aware of officers taking a creative writing course?
Objection relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Have you yourself ever taken a creative writing course?
Objection relevance.
Sustained. Next question.
Have you or anyone you know filed a complaint in this matter?
No.
Would you consider yourself an injured party in this matter?
No.
Ever directly talk to the plaintiff in this matter?
Don't know how I would talk to the state of Wisconsin.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I do not know how I would talk to the state of Wisconsin. It's an entity, not a person.
Not a person, right. No further questions?
Can you redirect?
Yes, sir. On page 6 of your report, you were identifying for the defendant some of the single source profiles that you developed. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And one of the items you described as items CC4A, CC5A, and CC8A. Do you see that?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, I do.
What do those items represent?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Those are cuttings of the apparent root ends of the hairs that I took off the sweatshirt.
Got to ask you about the hairs.
Objection leading.
You told Mr. Brooks on cross that you developed a single source profile for those hairs. Is that right?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name, and it's leading the witness.
The objections are noted. Overruled.
That's correct.
Who was the source of those hairs on that sweatshirt, State's Exhibit number 84?
Objection speculative.
Darrell Brooks is the source.
Thank you. Nothing else.
As much as I would love to have another witness. Do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all the evidence is presented and I have instructed you on the law. Anything else from you, sir?
No, I redid it's not the exact order that I'm going to call the witnesses, but it's pretty much...
Who you want, like each time block, morning or afternoon?
Exactly.
You'll be ready to
it's
go
just
tomorrow?
not exact order like I'm going to call this person,
I'm
this
not going to hold you
person.
to that. As long as it's by time blocks, if you want to call it that, but be ready to call
I did
witnesses.
it just so I can state for the record so it'll be easy to follow. I did the names by threes. I'm guessing the first 3 would be the morning, the next 3 would be the evening, and then Friday 3 morning, and then 3 evening. Is that fair?
I think so.